hear that recording announcement.
Okay, I'm ready. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is January 24th, I was gonna say 1924. That's okay. 2024. It is 4:03 PM. This is a Finance Committee. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And I want to thank our guest this evening. And so I'm going to start right away and let you give your little presentation to
Okay.
us, and then we have a chance to ask some questions.
Great, I'd love that. So, my name is Greg LaBosser. I'm the chairman of the Nassau Regional High School Building Committee.
Excuse me, is your thing on?
Thank you.
Yep, the little green light.
It on? Okay.
Pull it up. a
Yeah,
little
just,
closer.
pull it up a little closer, please.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
So I just want to give you a quick update. Now, you can ask as many questions afterwards. I know I have a busy schedule, but, so right now the project called Phase 1B is, about 50% along. We started February 20th of last year, of dismantling and reconstructing 6 buildings. So in the process of, a new science lab building, Building E, a new cafeteria, a new auditorium, slash performing arts center, and a new administration building. We're renovating the existing gymnasium and renovating the former classroom building and building into the arts building. So this roughly constitutes 60% of the project. It's the largest portion of the project to be done. Phase 2, which will start in August 1st of this year, will constitute the renovation, excuse me, of the last 4 buildings on the property. So to this point, the project is well underway. The contractor is has an accelerated building program. He is working hard to get the project on time for August of this year. The fixtures, furnishings, and equipment have been put out to bid. They'll be showing up in late June. Same thing with the technology budget that was put out to bid at the same time. That'll be coming out late June. Those 2 parts of the project will be staged or staggered because we don't have the whole project finished. So there'll be a section of furnishings for this phase, and it'll be same thing for technology for the second phase. So that's where we are today as far as the process. As Peter will tell you, it's kind of a not a dull roar, but it picks up pace and it kind of slacks off. We have a well-organized group of 6 of the building committee members that form a change order group. That change orders are run by us at least once, maybe twice a month, overseen by the architect and the project manager. We also have a group of building committee members that go to a weekly, every Thursday, there's a on-site meeting between the contractor, architect, the project manager, and owners to go over the process for that week and having a 3-week look ahead for construction. They last maybe an hour and a half, depending on how many issues have cropped up. We come to a resolution of issues. If not, we walk around the campus afterwards with the architect and his engineers, excuse me, and we'll have conversations with the contractor superintendent to make sure we adjust their issues to keep the project going forward. Other than that, change orders, I just want to bring up to speed. We have had 13 change orders. However, that doesn't mean there's just 13 things that need to be fixed. So within a change order, there may be as little as 1 or 2 items, in some cases, 8 or 9 items. But that process is, it's presented by either the contractor, an outside group like an engineer or one of the inspectors, an owner requested change, or something that's requested by one of the subcontractors. Those are run through the process of getting a proposal, getting some information from the architect and the engineers. Then it goes to the general contract. They put a price on it, and it comes to us, and we beat them up on the price on a regular basis. That's our role, as Peter will tell you, and we don't do much rolling over at all. We've turned down, as little as $2,000 because we don't think it's worthwhile spending. And other things we've sent back 4 or 5 times to make sure that we get proper pricing of this stuff. Because it's all about the money and making sure everybody gets what we deserve as a community, and we get our value for the dollar. The contractor, as I said before, is an accelerated process. Sometimes it's a little too fast. We've had to slow them down a little bit because they kind of rush through things, hoping we don't catch where they're at. But our role is to make sure, as Peter will tell you, that they stand by the specifications. I'll give you a quick example, is that they were covering up the classroom building, E-building, with the exterior sheathing before they had sprayed fire foam the structure. And we kind of said that doesn't really work because the walls are now in the way. So sent a little memo that you have to slow down, stop. You have to do it before according to the specifications. For folks to understand is that the only folks who can actually slow down or stop construction, it's not the architect, it's not the project manager, it's the owner's representatives. That's us on the building committee. So something happens, we have to get a hold of the architect, go through the specifications and make sure we phrase the order to the general contractor in such a way that we don't incur damages or fines according to the language of the contract. But it's a process you get used to and you move on from there. So right now, it's been moving quite along. We've been very lucky with the weather, quite frankly. We've had a few cold days, a little bit of snow, some rain, but mostly 90% of the trades have been on site working, even the exterior trades. The mason can work to a certain low temperature as long as the mortar is mixed properly with either chemicals or hot water, and the stone is kept at a certain temperature. So everything has a base of temperature. We did have to slow them down about a month ago. All the temporary heat units had not shown up on site. So they were in the one building taping and mudding the drywall, and we had to tell them to stop because it was below temperature. With a project manager representative was in with a handheld thermometer and sent us a picture of the temperature in the room, which was 39 degrees, which is 15 degrees colder than it's supposed to be. So they were told to move to another part of the project. But yeah, so it's working along very well. We're at the stage now where it comes in layers. The 3rd floor of the science building is the one that was actually the furthest along. The grid work for the suspended ceiling is being installed. The panels will not go in for another 2 to 3 weeks because everybody has to come and do their final inspections. All the engineer groups from Boston that work for the architect have to come down. The electrician, plumber, fire protection, everybody's got to show up and make sure everything they see there is up to specification and they pass on it. So they'll sign off. Then building commissioner will also do the same thing. And at that point, you give the okay to the general contractor to go ahead and put the ceiling tiles in. The walls have been painted in some respects, some places with a finished coat. The cabinetry is going in. So it's moving along very nicely. We don't have final heat yet. We're still working with National Grid on getting the gas turned on for the new heat source. But we're working on that. Hopefully in the next month and a half, it'll be squared away. So I'll stop there at that point, and you folks can ask as many questions as you'd like. And if I don't have the answer, I'll get them to you in a heartbeat. So thank you very much.
Just a couple of questions.
Please.
Thanks for your time tonight. I appreciate.
Oh,
giving
my
us the
pleasure.
update. Just one question is, we set aside a certain amount of money, for change orders,
Yep.
et cetera.
Yep.
How comfortable you're feeling where we stand relative to that budget and how
Uh,
it's being spent?
Well,
over time?
actually, as of this week, we first of all, we put $8.1 million aside for change orders for construction contingency. I'll phrase it that way. Because there's a contingency that belongs to owner's contingency. And within the architect's fee structure, there's a contingency for testing services, that much. But for construction, we have 8.1 million. As of this week, we've used or encumbered $4.2 million. So we've done a couple of outlooks for phase 2, looking at a percentage of what was used in the first phase for change orders. In other words, say for structural deficiencies in first phase 1, we had a certain percentage of the construction cost was set aside, was used in change orders. We took that same percentage and applied it to phase two. So we look at phase two, we have roughly $3.9 million left. And as far as we know, we're going to encumber most of that, maybe 3.7, 3.8, but we have at this point, my feeling, and so far everybody agrees, the architect agrees that we have enough money to do this, obviously. We're not going back for another pot of money. We'll stay within the budget. That's where we're supposed to be.
Okay.
And I will, remind folks that, as I said up front, this phase of the project is the largest. So phase two doesn't have to deal with a new heating system, new electrical system, new fire suppression system. All of those infrastructure pieces are in this phase. That is a vast amount of the trenching, the piping, the wiring, all this stuff is there. Phase two, they just basically run a stub to the four buildings, and the pipe distances are not that far because most of it's already in place. The ductwork is majority in the new phase. So I'm feeling pretty good that that's where we're going to be.
And so if I asked you, what's the one thing that might keep you up at night relative to phase two? What is it?
I don't have one really. I'm not being facetious, being. I know the building's inside and out because I did the last project 25 years ago, so I can mentally walk through every building and tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
Phase two is from the old buildings, actually are going to be easier because the structure is there. We're not touching the structure.
Mhm.
We're going to blow out the pieces of wall between structure, and we're going to build those right now, the concrete block with no insulation. Those will be built with new metal gauge studs, a lot of insulation, exterior siding, that. So the majority of the things we already know are there, but if there's something in the wall, we don't care because we're taking the wall out. So, yeah, and we're abandoning what's left of the utility tunnels below things. So everything comes up out of the ground, so it's easier to see and maintain it. So I'm not concerned, really.
Not concerned. Okay,
Okay?
good. So you feel comfortable about the
Yeah.
contingency and
Yep. Yeah.
expect to spend roughly about the same amount of the contingency in phase two.
Unfortunately,
as you
yes.
did
Yep.
in phase
Proportionally.
one,
Yeah.
Even though it's low risk.
I think less risk, but that's okay. Okay.
Got it. Yep, thanks.
It's gonna be tight though,
Yeah.
but we're.
Construction's hard. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not,
yeah.
don't
Especially
get me
these
wrong.
days.
I understand that, but
It's
I
some
think
big
there's
ones.
many challenges in phase
It's
two,
some
because
big ones in
sometimes
phase two.
modifying the building can be a little bit more challenging than building a new structure too.
We did have to do demo, and that was pretty challenging.
And what you uncover when you do the demo,
Exactly,
right?
that's
You
what I'm saying.
ever have a surprise when you did something like that?
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
usually
I'm
where we
just-
see the worst
Yeah.
part of it.
so
Sorry, I didn't-
that's okay. There's nothing to hide. The biggest challenge actually was when we get to building N. So that's the building we put up 25 years ago. So it was originally part of this program to be gutted. The interior is supposed to be gutted, and what were small classrooms, you could fit 2 of those classrooms in this hearing room. So those are switched around to make art classrooms. So they're much bigger. So we took out walls and partitions and pieces of the floor, stuff like that. What happened was that we had expected to be able to use the exterior windows that were part of a program with the MSBA 12 years ago. But what we didn't know, because we couldn't take the building apart before we started working on it, was that the windows were actually glued structurally to the exterior facade of the stone. So when they took the stone away, there was nothing holding up the windows. So at that point, you have to say, okay, how are we going to rebuild this? So that was about a month's worth of work of redesigning the exterior envelope. They didn't bother with the interior walls because that was all being done anyway. So as a matter of redoing the exterior, that was the biggest hit to the contingency, is $1.2 million. But as I explained to the committee a couple of times, a couple of folks said, well, we should have torn it down. I'm going, okay, let's do the math. Building N is 30,000 square feet. This project prices out at $400 a square foot. That's $12 million to replace the building. And we spent a tenth of that to just the exterior facade. So it was well worth the investment, quite frankly. And we couldn't go backwards anyway. So that's where we are. Okay.
It's happened. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, my pleasure.
And I could add to that, the second biggest change order we had in phase one was this clarification on the plans, the HVAC contractor, read it one way and, we read it another way. And, it ended up being $500,000 change order to come to a meeting point, about whether we should, whether he could use, mechanically connected pipes or welded pipe. And, you know, I think originally it was $1.5 million to use the welded or something. We got it down to 500,000, but that's done deal now, and we're not gonna run into that in phase two. So the two biggest change orders from phase one are not gonna be an issue
Yeah.
in phase two. So that's why we're pretty confident that we're gonna be able to make it.
So I have a couple questions.
Please.
One of the issues that you're talking about, concerns was the asbestos situation.
Mhm.
And how much did that cost? Because it's my understanding that you didn't really understand how much of asbestos was on the buildings that you were in process of fixing.
Okay, there's all kinds of asbestos, but, the way it's coded today, it's ACM, asbestos containing materials. So part of the project bid was actually the tile floor in some of the buildings. And if there wasn't the floor tile, it was the glue, the mastic that held in place. That was identified as having asbestos in it. That was part of the bid price for $134 million. The part that was identified but never quantified was that the exterior of the original buildings, the concrete block, had a basically what we call basement sealant. The tar that you see on foundations today was put on back in the 60s. And that's what kept the
Asbestos.
block from getting water into the buildings. So when they took out the exterior wall wood, they found this black material, which was the asbestos containing mastic. So that was identified in a report from our engineers and the folks who did the hazardous materials review, but they never were able to quantify because they didn't know how thick it was until we were able to tear the wall out.
Actually get into it.
Yeah, so obviously it was easy. The two buildings we tore down, the cafeteria and the science building, that was easy quantifiable. They took the concrete block, dropped it on a plastic sheet, put more plastic over it and trucked it off to Ohio. So that was easy. The buildings that was the most difficult is actually the gymnasium, because we could not take the concrete block out because the concrete block was actually part of the structure because it was so tall. The concrete block was much larger, so it held part of the building together. So actually, that was the cheapest part of the whole deal, is that maybe it was less than $200,000 for the workers to tent the building and basically grind off the 1/4 inch outside mastic and put it in trash bags, and that got sent to a landfill. So that was actually the easiest part of the whole project. It was just a lot of work, but it was the least expensive. The trucking cost to Ohio was a federally recognized hazardous waste material depot. That was the most expensive part of that project. So that was about $500,000 in total for that. So of course we know that the other buildings are going to have the same thing as the original to the property. We've already accounted for that in our spreadsheet of things to come down the pike. So they'll know that we'll take the concrete block and get that shipped to Ohio starting next September, or this September, excuse me.
So I have another question,
Yep.
actually a couple questions.
Please.
The 7.2 million that we were expecting to help us with the price.
Yep.
And I've seen the letter that we received, which wasn't much help.
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud, right?
Welcome to our world.
Yeah, right. What can you tell us about where that situation is and how we can use it in regards to this project?
So right now, it's in the court of our project manager. There's a person in the office who is her role is to deal with MSBA. So she has had conversations with MSBA with regards to our $7.1 million. And you saw the response, which is bureaucratic, and basically we'll let you know when we figure this out. So I have to be careful when I speak about the MSBA. They're good partners. However, it's an agency that has built its reputation on treating everybody very equally. So when we go up there, just as a group asking for help, and we ask for a little extra things, they're very polite about smiling and saying no. So when the legislature stepped in and gave them money for 16 projects that was outside their purview and outside their best advice to spend, they're still trying to figure out how to deal with it. So
So the whole was 100 million and somehow we've been told we should expect around the 7 point.
7.1 million is what was earmarked for Nauset.
Mhm.
There's 15 other projects around the state to get varying amounts of money. So knowing how MSBA works, they're going to work with our project manager and basically look at the categories of support they gave the project originally in that $36 million. And they will earmark parts of the 7.1 in the same percentages to that part of the project, but we probably won't know for another year and a half. So it'll come towards the end of the project. Like when MSBA does change orders, they own some of the change orders. So all the paperwork is filed, they review it. At some point, they will say, okay, this piece of the change order is something that we agree with.
So
And-
it'd be subtracted from the 7.1?
No, actually, first it starts coming from the 36 million because that $36 million
Original.
has
original.
almost $2.3 million just for change orders. So
As part of the 36.
yep, part of the 36. So there'll be some reimbursement from MSB on the change orders based again on their reading of the paperwork we filed and who started it and what the cause was and that type of thing. And then they'll do their sliding scale and let us know how much they reimburse us for it.
And you feel you won't know that answer for another year and a half?
Yeah.
That's too bad. I have a couple of other questions. You mentioned the bids that have gone out. I saw that you sent out 2 bids, one for FF&E and one for technology.
Yep.
But I understand the technology is only for phase 1. That's based on what I read.
Yes.
So I'm looking at the budget for FF&E, and there's 3.6 million. Does that include, since you've requested 2 bids, one for the what you've called FF&E and one for technology,
Yes.
the total that you have in your budget is 3.6 for all of that.
Mhm.
Do you expect, given the fact that this was put together quite a while ago, obviously,
Well,
given supply and demand and cost of supplies and everything else, that you're gonna have some issues there?
no, because when we asked the towns for that extra $38 million, we on our own bumped up the 2 budgets for FF&E and technology by almost $900,000, 800 plus, to make up for that fact there was a delay as to when we originally priced this stuff out and when we're going out to bid. And what happens is that because we're bidding now, it's going to be delivered in 2 chunks, but when the bids come in a month and a half, there will be a per unit price. So phase 2, when it wants to buy a computer or something like that, a desk or something like that, it'll be at the same price. So it will be there's no chance for them to reinflate the pricing, which is why we bid the whole package now. It locks in our pricing and we just don't take delivery of it because we don't have room for it, but we don't need it until the rest of the campus is put together. So there's a method to the madness at some point.
Are you using any of the furniture that was in?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. The staff was great about going through it all and making sure that only the really bad things were thrown out. Keep in mind that we did this 25 years ago when I did the other project. So we kept furniture from the original school in 1969, 70 and repurposed that. We added some of the project 25 years ago. So some of that's still around. The project furniture 25 years ago is still around as well. So yeah,
It's mostly bad and it should all be.
The furniture you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's a desk, it's a chair, you know, that
Mhm.
type of thing. But yeah, it's gonna be a lot different.
Mhm.
So yeah, I hope I answered your question on that.
So I have another question. Given the issues that we see across the United States and the world regarding security with the schools.
Yep.
What sort of security is going to be in place, given the fact that it's sort of like a campus and you've got umpteen doors and exits and entrances and everything else over there?
So part of the design of the project is, I'll remind you, is that when you go on campus today, if you drive up, you see a parking lot in the front that was never there.
Right?
So that's because that's where the public will park. And there'll be a parking lot to the east, just on the south of the tennis courts. There'll be an entrance off the front parking lot, one entrance to the administration building. It'll be marked. That'll be the front door to the campus. All visitors will have to go into that doorway to be checked in, security wise. There's going to be a gate between that new administration building and what is now the library building. That'll be a controlled gates for the students only. So they'll be going in there. All the other points of entry that you are now aware of on the back of the campus will be gated, locked. And the other entrance for the public will be to the east between the existing gymnasium and what is now N building. That'll be the main entrance to, if you want to get into the cafeteria or the gymnasium. And those will all be guarded. So during school time, the only place you can enter is the main office, and then you have to have a pass to go up a particular place. All the public spaces, the auditorium, the gymnasium, cafeteria are in the southeast corner of the property. If you want to take a evening class for arts, that'll be in the N building, that'll be a southeast corner. Anything past those buildings will not be accessible to the folks after hours. It's secure, it's shut off. There's doors that lock. There's going to be a myriad of cameras everywhere, hallways, courtyard, to make sure that only people supposed to be there are there. So that's a huge component of the project, was designing it for traffic flow to keep the education section and the public section separate.
When you said some of the doors are going to be guarded, what,
They'll be locked.
oh, not, you're not having a person there. Yeah.
No, the gate, the main gate for the students going in is, as I said, between the two buildings, but it's right off the offices for the principal, assistant principal. So there's windows there, so they'll have a chance to view who's going in, but also they have a process where they're going to stand out there and make sure it's only students coming in, because the gate will open at a certain hour that they haven't said yet and close at a certain hour. Once the gate closes, you can't get in. You have to go through the office. So if the students are chronically late, they're gonna know about it because they're going through the office. So yeah, it's all a matter of controlling flow of folks on campus.
So I have
They
another,
Actually have an officer there full time. Just-
oh, yeah, I knew that, yeah. But I mean, he's not all over everywhere, so.
Oh my God, no.
That'd be impossible, yeah. I did take a tour of the building. I think it was 2 Fridays ago, which Peter very kindly set up for us. Are you considering solar panels?
So as part of the project, we don't get involved in that. Part of the regulations from Massachusetts is, as you put up a public building, all the structural steel in which you visited is sized enough to carry the load of rooftop solar panels. But the district has to wait until the project is done and do like we have. The district has a separate deal with a provider for the solar panels on N building. They would make those kind of arrangements with some other vendor to come along later and do that. But the infrastructure is there to support it and plug it in. For instance, the charging stations in the parking lot, there are 20 in each, if I remember right. Yeah, 20 each. 10 of them are installed right now. There's 10 more stations that can be added later. But that's a program that we are working with Eversource. They have a program where they are paying us back for the installation and all the infrastructure for those EV stations.
Mhm.
So that's another thing that we build separately, accounted separately. So when the project is done, we submit the paperwork to Eversource and they will cut us a check to ease that burden. We're also going to get a check from Cape Light Compact. Once the heating systems are up and running, and they have made sure that they're as efficient as the engineers said they would be. And I believe that's a $400,000 check as well. So there are other funds out there who've been working at to keep the money flowing and less impact to the taxpayer.
Are you applying for LEED?
Oh, yes, this project will be not LEED Gold, LEED Silver, if I remember right. Yeah,
We've got gold, but not platinum.
no, we got silver.
Silver.
The LEED Gold is, we looked at it during the building project, and to get that last 3 or 4 points was like $8 or $9 million, and the return on investment was not good. So we're gonna be LEED Silver, and so far, we're doing very well with that. I don't know what Peter showed you, but the exterior of the buildings, there's 10 times insulation in these buildings now than ever was on campus before. It's at least 6 inches thick, in the walls, the roof, the existing roof decks, like in the gymnasium, there's 6 to 10 inches of spray foam up on the ceiling. So the building envelope is much tighter, better. The architects at one point said it's gonna be hard to keep a candle lit because the buildings are so tight. So we'll be introducing, a lot of fresh air through the system, not cold air, but the air circulates. The ductwork is unbelievable. as you go through these buildings.
That's something that some of the old buildings don't have, and they really missed because of COVID situation.
Yep, so that'll all be added to the old buildings as well. If you were in the gymnasium, I'm sure you were, but the gymnasium has ductwork that's 8 feet in diameter. Return and feed. It'll be, as far as I know, the only high school gymnasium that's air conditioned. In the vicinity, that was part of the program, and well, we promised folks and folks asked us to do. So it'll be a,
Very grateful at town meeting.
yes, you will,
Mm.
absolutely. And you'll also be very happy when you see the quality of the auditorium
Yeah,
that's being
we
built.
we were in it the other day.
Yeah, and the staff that's been working to do the finishes, the colors and things like that, they've done an outstanding job. It's gonna be very, very nice to see this finished and have a great facility like that.
So there's AC in the entire building?
Yep.
But there's only generator coverage for part of the building.
So that's a fine line. So the generator is large enough to keep
I had a question.
cafeteria?
Yeah, thank you.
large enough to keep the public spaces cool during a storm. So it's the cafeteria, gymnasium, part of the auditorium, and some of the offices on the first floor. To keep the whole place in the generator for full-time use was just ridiculous. The generator is so huge and needed. It was going to cost us a small fortune. So you prioritize the spaces you want to keep air conditioned in a storm. But during the regular school day, when street power, the whole place is air conditioned and heated and cooled. Yeah, all the classrooms, everybody.
I think, Roy, did you have a question?
Yeah, just to back up a little, make sure I understood, Greg. Greg, did you mention that $900,000 had been set aside for technology and furniture?
We added
Added.
another
Added.
roughly $900,000 to both the FF&E and technology budget, because those budgets were set 4 years ago. So
Yes.
there was like 1.2 and 2 point something. We realized that those dollars wouldn't go very far. So we were asking the towns to fund the project. Said, let's ask for the right amount of money for get the project done. So yeah, that's why they went out to bid, and everybody's very happy with where we are with the bid process. The staff was very involved, and matter of fact, the two staff people and the architects representative were very complimentary on the staff for being as frugal as they were in their requests. There wasn't a lot of frill, a lot of fancy stuff. They wanted basic, good technology that they were accustomed to and they could justify. So that's why the budget is where it is. And there is a contingency in both those budgets, by the way. That money is not all being earmarked. There's enough money set aside in case something comes along that they get a per unit price they want to buy more of, so we can do that.
Who led the technology budget process?
That's a combination of a lot of folks. There's a consultant from the architect's office. There's the technology department heads at the high school. There are other department heads that use technology in different venues, either the math department, English, science. So they're all part of the process. And also we looked at other schools before we started building or doing the project. So we're aware of technology that's around the state and what's been used before. Some school departments, when we thought kind of crazy with technology, buying the best and greatest, but some of it wasn't used properly. So teachers got the feedback from staff who had been part of a project that they really didn't have much to say in, and all this technology was in their classroom. So we don't really need some of that stuff. So again, it was well thought out from our perspective, and the school will be well taken care of for next 25, 30 years anyway.
Thank you.
That answers your question.
Yes.
Greg, and I was reconfiguring this because of all the stuff that came for. But it seems like as far as the hazardous materials, as far as
You're on.
this is on, yeah. As far as the hazardous materials are concerned,
Hmm?
you feel very comfortable that in phase one, all of the potential contingencies that you might find as you go through there have in some way been covered or planned for.
I did, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes.
Great.
Yep.
Wonderful. Yep. That's all I have.
Okay.
Any other questions? I want to thank you very much
My
for
pleasure.
joining us, and
Pleasure. You folks.
maybe we'll have you back as we get closer to for you, the end.
Oh my God, that's down the road. So
Yeah, right, right.
last little name is that Monday, the 22nd of January was the 6th anniversary of the building project,
Mm.
building committee. We started January 22nd, 2018.
Mhm.
So we've been at 6 years and we have another year and a half to go roughly. So,
Well, I think it says December 25th around there.
Yep.
2025.
so, and
Yeah.
Jackie's gonna let us know if she wants the modular classrooms or not. So
Yeah.
that'll,
I think we'd
that'll be
really
on
have
the,
to bid 'em, fortunately.
no, we'll talk about that. Anyway, so you can ask me back anytime you like, folks. You've always been great supporters of the project. I just need to know a week or two ahead of time to put it in my schedule. So anytime you want, if you have other questions that crop up, give them to Peter or just have me email me and I'll get you the answers from whoever needs to respond.
And I know Peter set up a time for us to get a tour. As I said, I think it was a couple Fridays ago now.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. A number of us went. And that's the best day for,
It is because, the trades groups work 4 10-hour days.
yeah, for,
Uh,
10-hour
yep.
days, yeah.
But, there's a small group, the plumber, the electrician and HVC guy, which are the 3 biggest, portions of this project are working Fridays as well, but that's roughly 50 to 55 workers versus the 150 on a regular Monday to Thursday.
Mhm.
So it's easy to get around, less things to be careful of falling.
Safer, yeah.
Much easier to get around, but, and you'll see from week to week, huge differences. By the next, within the next 10 days, the gymnasium will be, having the flooring put down. They've started the ceiling, everything, are working their way down the walls, with the soundboard, and then they're gonna work on the floor. And that's gonna be all hardwood. The whole gymnasium will be hardwood now. So that'll make a big difference in how many groups can use it, because there'll be basically 3 basketball courts versus the one before, so it'll make a big difference. And then, as I said, as you get to the 3rd floor of the science room building, those labs will be pretty much done. The only thing that won't be finished will be the flooring. There, we obviously for the last will be the flooring, but the grid ceilings will be in, the countertops, things like that. All that stuff is already purchased. It's not on site, but it's at least purchased, so they'll be able to get that squared away. And for instance, when we decided to redo end building, the exterior envelope, we didn't have to wait very long because the windows we used and the envelope were the same we had in the rest of the project. They're already on campus because they bought them for phase 2. So they're already in the trailer, for us to grab and put in building. So they made another order for phase 2, which starts again this fall. So again, because of the process and the general contractor's method of operation, we're doing pretty good.
So actually, I have another question. I know you bought a lot of stuff in
Yeah.
advance because you figured it was better from a financial perspective. And you've sort of got a little yard there where you've got all your stuff.
Yep.
And a lot of trees and stuff were taken down in the process of getting the space there.
Yep.
Is that going to be reforested after you're finished? Are there monies in there for that?
There's some money left in the landscape budget. I'm not sure where it's gonna be earmarked towards, but there's a bunch of money left in there. I can't say where it's all gonna be put. The first decision has to be where the modulars are.
Mhm.
So there's if they move on, or taken out, however they're taken, disposed of, we have to recreate the garden for the group that was having a garden there. We
Yeah.
can save their soil. And then, there's always, the request to do a maintenance building, which was never able to be afforded at this point, but that'd be a great place to put it because the water electricity is right there. It's already, the ground's already level. So that's a possibility of using, so if there's leftover funds to do that. After that, it's just figuring out how to reforest, the back 20. Yeah, I know the neighbors are kind of shocked. I had to deal with one of the neighbors who was,
Yeah, I know. I think there are some
That's
people
what-
that weren't quite happy about it.
well, we weren't either, quite frankly. The plans always showed a green buffer, but the modular classrooms, because we had to reconfigure them. And in the town of Lincoln, they were set up totally differently when you see there today.
Yeah.
But because our site is differently
Configured.
portioned,
Yeah.
they had to cut it up differently and put it together differently. So it kept shoving them further and further to the west
Hmm.
because we needed to be able to have that
That other space.
construction zone around the existing building. So unfortunately, that was one of the issues. But we'll try to put it back.
So no town meeting in the gymnasium this May, maybe
Oh, definitely next year.
definitely next year.
Definitely.
Definitely next year. Absolutely. And you'll have to have
In
your,
the,
you'll have to have your pick, either the gymnasium or the auditorium.
Yeah, yeah,
The auditorium is going to seat 734 people.
yeah. I was counting the numbers when I was up there the other day. I was thinking it was 750, but yeah.
Well, it was really designed for 750 when you start cutting up the spaces for handicap and
Oh,
ramps
oh.
and things like that. We lost 16.
Hmm.
But it's just 734 is what's going to be the final seating arrangement. So that would be great.
Probably plenty for town meeting, right?
Should be on most years. Yeah.
Most years.
They'll have the best technology, a nice big screen
if you
and
want
best
another
sound system.
water
and-
power project or something, we don't want to be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, air conditioning.
And that sound is gonna be great. Everything's gonna be great.
It has 2 elevator accesses, so you're all set.
Well, thank you very much
My
for
pleasure.
coming.
Thank you very much.
and,
Anytime.
Thank you.
Good luck with
We'll
your
probably
budget.
have you back.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. Okay, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the agenda, just do the minutes. We have minutes, the November 29th minutes. And Tom, you were absent. Steve, you were absent. So I need a motion to approve the minutes of November 29th, 2023. Do I have a motion? Joanna,
Motion to approve the minutes of November 29th.
Second,
second Roy. All in favor, Roy? Joanna,
Aye.
aye.
Russ? Aye, Peter,
Aye.
you were absent and you were absent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-0. Okay, and we are now down to item number 3, sorry, 4 on the agenda, and I'm going to turn it over to Rich, who's going to discuss the budget review. How are you feeling, Rich?
Not great,
Mm, mm.
but I'm here, so didn't want to miss this. I will put the budgets as you discuss them up on the screen. Mary, do you want me to take just 5 minutes to give you an overview of the whole budget, or do you just want to get right into the departmental budgets?
Well, we have a guest here. Linda Sassy is here for the town clerk's area.
Yes, she's an employee.
Oh, I know but she's still a guest. She doesn't normally attend.
I think we should do the overview first.
So maybe Linda, would you like to join us up here? Sure. So it might be nice if we did you want to give a brief overview, and then maybe we could start with Linda's area and then go from there.
Yeah, I'm going to share, just to refresh everybody's memory. This is the budget presentation that you all heard. It's in your binders in the front, along with the operating budget book and the capital budget book. Oops. This page here is the budget summary. And so, as you know, we kind of break this down into 3 different buckets: the operating budget, the capital budget, and then other budget items. Tonight, we're talking about the operating budget bucket and various components of that. As you can see, it's balanced. And on the next page here, the biggest balancing item in the whole budget is our property tax levy. This column here shows our calculation, and we are barely in balance. When we had done our projections at the end of last year, we had hoped to have excess levy capacity about 50 to 60,000, I believe it was. And there's a few reasons which I highlighted, and I think in the budget book and maybe in this presentation as well, the kind of areas that came in that were unanticipated that eroded some of that. And the other key item has to do with using a placeholder of 3% for the schools. There are a couple other placeholders in the budget, but I'm comfortable with where they're gonna end up. 3%, the more indications we've gotten since the development of this budget is that 3% probably isn't gonna be sufficient. Based on some news we've got, enrollment shifts and collective bargaining obligations of the district. So that'll be a challenge, but I'm not going to worry about those challenges until we know what we're dealing with. But you ought to keep those in mind as we go through the process, because obviously if the school budget comes in higher than provided for, we've got a couple of choices. We can either raise more revenues or we can reduce spending in other areas to accommodate it. And so going through this process with the departments will kind of give you an indication of where maybe some of those opportunities are if that's the route we choose to take. So that's my quick summary there. The only other thing I wanted to show you and share with you is the budget summary table. Let me bring that up. And that's this. And so tonight, we're looking at this line 1, elected official, 1 and 2, elected in general. We're looking at town administrations 3 through 6. We're looking at municipal finance 7 through 13. We're looking at debt service 55 through 58, unallocated 50 through 54. And then finally, in this, I'll turn it over to the clerk, town clerk. We're looking at town clerk and elections budgets, line 14 and 15. And with that, that's the context. I'll let you guys have at it.
But before we get started on that, I have a couple of comments or questions. Basic questions. Number one, when we had the override last year for the 710,000, 400 of that was for salaries for last year, and 90,000 was for salaries for this year. Is that 90,000 included in the budget that we're going to be reviewing? Has that number been reduced because people left and other things happened that we didn't need all that money for?
I'm not sure I get that question, Mary.
Well, what the collective bargaining, when we had 90,000, additional 90,000 for salaries for this year, 400 last year, 90, and then 60 next year?
Well, we did an override of an amount,
Right,
and we didn't utilize that full amount.
right. We
Expecting
didn't
that
utilize the 90 and the 60. We just used the 400.
Expecting that excess levy capacity would carry over to fund this year.
Right,
And that's what I referred to. Our expectation was to be is going into the third year that there'd be another about 50,000 left over this year, so that we'd have it for the third year of the contract.
right. It was 400, 90, and 60.
So it's the 60 that's been eroded, not the 90.
I think the 400 was for the current year. 90 would be for this fiscal year 25, and
Which-
60 would be for 26.
Right,
If-
and we're short 60. Our expectation, when I just showed you that slide with excess levy capacity of $26, that should be approaching $60,000.
Okay, and I have another comment. Last year, when we were in the process of doing all of this, on a number of occasions, we were interested in getting the actuals, year-to-date actuals for the items or the line items that we were discussing. Is that, I know obviously the fiscal year 24 is not over yet. Is it possible in the process of doing some of this work to get some of the year-to-date actuals to show, to look and compare to what we're talking about for the budget for 25?
Yeah, our ledger is up to date, week to week based on warrants that we process and bills that we pay. I don't know that's particularly useful. I mean, some departments are more useful than others. Recreation is going to be entirely not useful because you got a whole program that starts at the beginning of the summer before the end of the year starts. Beaches, there's all number of things. But if that's what you want, I can bring you a year-to-date budget report for every department if you want.
I think sometimes that's helpful, Rich, for us to be able to look at what the trend is in the budget and how well we're staying on top of the plan that we put out. The other thing I'd like to see too is a couple of years of budgets and actuals, because right now, the way the budget books are laid out, we only have 1 year that includes budget and actuals. So it's like whack-a-mole trying to understand when I read these budgets, how I go from 21 to 25. And I really don't need to look all the way back to 25. You know, if I got 3 years of budgets and actuals, or 2 years of budgets and actuals, and 1 year of proposed budget and actuals to date, I think it'll help us do some analysis to really, lend some credibility to what we're reviewing here, So that's why, if I look
So you
at.
don't think there's any credibility to this? I don't.
Credibility to
so-
our review, not you,
Yeah.
I have all the faith in what you guys are doing. But when I look at this, if I look at the books, it's almost like, I got a bridge in the middle for FY 23, which is last year, but I'm halfway through this year and I'm talking about next year's budget. But then I look backwards, I've only got actuals for 21 and 22, but I don't have any budget. So I can't tell the ramp up in budgets or downslope in budgets compared to what was actually proposed and how they're actually spent. So, in any budget I've been involved in for 40 years in business, and it's, it's government business, you know what I mean? We've always had a couple of years of pass so that we could look at the 1 year that we're proposing in the future. And we did have actuals to date because, we wanted to look at how well the business, or in this case, the town, is actually doing and spending the budget that was planned, because are we gonna try to spend 90% of the budget in the last 3 months, which is gonna cause chaos in the town? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's what's gonna happen. I'm not saying that's gonna happen. You know what I mean? But
But that's actually a common practice, Tom, especially with the school districts.
Yeah.
Most budgets, especially in schools, are tight until the end, so you minimize and only do what you gotta do to make sure you even make it in the first place, because there's so much things that could happen that you're being preventative, you're not spending in case they happen, and then you get near the end and you realize, phew, those things didn't happen, I can now execute these other priorities, and you do that. And so it's not uncommon, not because people are overspending and trying to pad their office supplies, it's because, they're preventative throughout the year until the end that they know they've made it, and then they spend for the items that have been budgeted for. But now I can give you whatever you want. If that's what you want, that's what you want.
It would be helpful. I think, a couple of us have thought that would be beneficial going forward. So maybe when you're back, we can talk about what we actually need. I'm sure you've got the data. It's just that I think the way it's presented right now makes it hard for us to do an analysis and come to the meeting. That's all.
Well, sounds like you just want to add the 22 budget in there.
Yeah, 22 budget and the actuals to date, you know what I mean? So we can see there's some sort of a trend.
Year to date.
Yeah, I don't need it for 21, you know what I mean?
No, that's too far behind. Yeah.
Yeah, and things happen, you know what I mean? And like you said, there's probably a lot of good excuses for, in the case of actuals today, for money not being spent. And, those are the ones that you just tell us, again, we're looking for trends. We're not looking for, hardcore dollar values. It's like going through this budget. I'm not worried about the $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, you know what I mean? I'm looking at things that jumped up or went down by, 25, 30, 50%. Those are the things we need to talk about.
And also remind you, it's in the back of the operating budget book, is the last prior year year-end review, which gives you a measure of the top best performing budgets in the overall. We have that for each of the last several years. And I get it, we want to change the format and add a couple of years. It's easy enough to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do it for this year, but going forward, if you want an extra year's budget and year to date, I can put that into the templates.
And that's one of the things we could talk about too. Maybe the way to represent the actuals today could be by department, just showing what the plan is and where they are in the spend. It could be a graph or something, let's talk about the easiest way to do it on your half. so we
Present
get something
the
we can use.
information.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay.
Okay. So I think we're going to go to the town clerk, and do you want to talk about how do you want to do this, Rich? Do you want to make your comments and then we can
No.
ask questions?
No, I think she's got it. I'll just share it on the screen for a bit.
So, my budget is actually for 2025 is, less than 2024, so I'm good. 2024 is a bigger year for some expenses because, it
You
is
want
a-
to pull that up a little bit,
Sure.
Linda?
it is a big election year. So instead of having 2 or 3 elections, we have 4 elections plus the town meeting. So that is going to add, it's going to add expenses. We did purchase out of some funding that was done from the state. It's not coming out of our budget. We purchased a new ballot box. So we have extra capacity for the big elections that are going to happen in March, September, and November. And we added some money in there for election workers because we know we're gonna need more workers to do the job. So I don't know if you have any other questions on what's here, but we did add in some money for the clerk conferences and for our assistant town clerk to attend the clerk school, which is held in July. It's 1 week and it's like boot camp for clerks. It's a 3-year program. I went through it only, and I hate to admit this, it took 5 years, but it was only because of COVID. They shut down for 2 years. So I did go through it for 3 years and the whole program, and it was wonderful. I highly recommend it, and she's looking forward to going.
You're talking about Kendra.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
I do have a question.
yes,
And I was looking at the reason for the increase, one of the reasons.
Mhm.
And it's, for me, it's on page 72, under, object item, 53, 5530000. Election coding, 3 tabulators and 3 poll pads.
full pads, right?
And that is a new item on the budget, and it's probably the biggest increase as to,
Well, we,
reason for your increase for your budget. So
We've
what are
all-
those?
the tabulators are the ballot boxes.
Hmm.
So we had 2 before, now we have 3.
Hmm.
And each time that you use them, you have to pay to have them coded with the particular election, even the town election.
Hmm.
So we have to pay a service to do that. And that service has gone up, of course. And then we have also purchase another poll pad, and we have to pay to have that programmed as well for each and every election. In addition, we have another tabulator that is already in here. And that's for people to use who are hearing impaired, blind,
Hmm.
or need to have the ballot enlarged. It has Braille features to it, and that is a federal requirement. You have to have that at every election.
And and we're getting that for the first time?
Oh, no,
Oh,
we've
oh,
had
the
it
way-
every election.
Oh.
No, Mary, I think, I probably just didn't break it out. We decided, and I talked to Linda about this. I think, in the prior year, it's part of that $3,600.
Right.
And for the first time, I'm pulling that out of the line items because she has this animal licensing module, which I think that part was new, Linda.
Yes.
So we just started
I
listing
see, yeah.
them separate. I should have moved the $3,600 up on the $4,500 line.
Yeah, that looked a little strange to me, an animal licensing module.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that you had the cost of the coding under the animal licensing module originally? Is that what?
I didn't have it under that. I think it was all kind of glommed
in.
together
Oh.
under,
Yeah, that's
under-
not, those aren't separate accounts. That's just additional data for our departments to know, you know,
right.
what adds up to amount. The account is the top line. It's
Right.
all into that account. It's just in breaking out the detail, just so you had some context of what's in those lines that we
Right,
individually put significant items. And I just didn't put the 3,600 with the 4,500 because I initially added a row and I must have moved the poll pads up and
Mhm.
didn't move the amounts.
Gotcha.
Right.
So the cost was included before, it was just in another line, so to speak.
Yes.
But you've pulled it out because that's why it shows up for the first time this year without showing anything for the budget for last year or the year before.
But
Am-
it is
am I-
not total, Mary. So that $6,600 last year, it
Yeah.
included all of that.
Yeah.
Compared to 8,000 this year. So the 8,000 this year is the addition of the animal licensing module and the additional costs on the tabulators and poll pads.
Yeah, I see that.
Poll pad, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
A
what's a poll
poll,
pad?
a poll pad is
Yeah.
it is basically an iPad. So when you're checking in, if any of you come to vote here in Eastham personally instead of by mail, you check in and the person sitting there checking you in would have a iPad in front of them, and Mary Shaw would come up to me and I would ask you your name and where you live, and they would find you on the poll pad, check you in, and then you hand you a ballot and you go and vote.
To vote. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's electronic.
Going through the
Electronic
Yeah.
Just an
versus just
electronic
on.
check-in.
It's an electronic check.
versus a handwritten or a printed form of some
Right,
sort.
right.
We don't check people on the way out anymore, do we?
We do not.
Mhm.
It's not a state requirement any longer. So we
They
do.
get lost in the middle of the ballot boxes.
Valley of death
Yeah,
between
they
check in
just
and check
stay
out.
there. We don't care. They might get lasagna. who knows?
Yes, yes, it's, yeah, the poll pads have made it a lot more efficient because at the end of the night, you can run reports as to how many voters
much
came
quicker.
in. You can actually even run what time of day you had the most amount of voters. You can run graphs. Well, it's very, very useful.
Mhm.
So you can, at the end of the night, you have a tape that spits out of the ballot box that says you have this many voters. And then you can run a report on your poll pads. The two should match. In the past, that is.
Different, yeah, you didn't have that
We
capability.
didn't have the capability. It was done by hand.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
counting
Oh.
was done by hand.
Mhm.
Do you have a hard time getting workers to volunteer for the elections?
Actually, they're not volunteers. We pay them. We
It's
do
like
get some
1.5
people
or
to
something.
volunteer,
Yeah,
which
okay.
is wonderful, and we thank them very much. But we break the day up into 3 shifts, so they're not here all day long. That we have some people who are morning people. They come first thing 6:30 in the morning. We have other people who like to be night owls, so to speak. So they'll come at the end of the night and help us sort out the ballots and look for write-ins. That's going to be incredibly important this year because we expect to see a lot of write-ins.
But you think you'll be able to track enough staff that you?
Oh,
need?
yeah.
Other towns are really struggling to get people to man polls.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot. We reached out this year I sent letters, at the end, well, really about, I think it was October. I sent, letters out to about 500 registered voters, asking them if they would either volunteer or, come in for an informational session and see if they were interested in becoming election workers. And out of that group, we've gotten about 40 new workers.
40 new ones. And
Yes.
how many do you already have?
Oh, we had about 35.
35? So
Yeah.
you're looking at doubling the staff.
Yes.
That's great.
And what do you pay them? if you do pay-
$15 an hour.
Hmm.
But like we said, some are volunteers.
yeah.
We were lucky to get our former, administrative assistant who worked in our office to volunteer. So she'll be working the next election. And so she already knows the ropes, which is great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Other towns are paying like 125 and they're working 12 to 14 hours.
Oh, that's a long day.
125 for the day,
Yeah,
From 6 in the morning to
that's a long.
8 at night
6:30
or
in the
something.
morning till 8:30.
Yeah, I
o'clock at
mean,
night.
you
It is
want to
long
make
day.
sure that there's no mistakes.
Sure, yeah.
So,
And that they don't pass out.
oh, yeah.
Well, we do throw pizza under the door.
Exactly, but sometimes it's not enough.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
it's great when we can get people to volunteer and even when people come in to register to vote for the first time, they're coming from Connecticut or New York or New Jersey, wherever. I'll ask them, would you like to be, give us 4 hours of your time on an election and help us out for an election? And many of them will fill out an election application right then and there. So, and I do also reach out to the high school civics
Well,
teacher
that's a good idea.
and ask them, I can have 2 people under the age of 18 work, primarily at night. I mean, these people at 8 o'clock at night, they're just starting their day, their evening. So they've got fresh eyes. They can look for write-ins. They're great. We had a young man last November and it was wonderful. So, or 2022 November. So,
That's an excellent idea. I
Yeah.
like that idea.
Yes, and we don't have to pay them. That's for community service
Community
hours
service, yeah.
Yep.
Did you say you can only have two?
by law.
Why, just out of curiosity, I wonder why that is.
Yeah, well, that's
Oh,
not
yeah,
by law.
yeah, interesting, only two.
Yeah.
Why do you expect more write-ins?
Well,
This
we
year.
have, when it's when it's a big election year, we always see people who will write in anything from Donald Duck
Yeah.
to the other candidate's name in the other party to, they might put Charlie Baker on for president. So we have to look at everything that's written in and, no matter what it says. Now, those, like Charlie Baker wouldn't count because he's not on the ballot, but we still have to account for them. And the way that the ballot box works is when you put the ballot in, if it has anything written in, it drops into a separate compartment. So those are pulled out and they're basically hand counted. So it takes a while. And then you want to come at the end of the night. Come on, join us.
Do you get many questions, or requests for information regarding the,
Oh, yes.
yeah?
Yes.
And how is that handled and
In 2020,
the time
believe-
it takes?
Well, it depends on the size of the request,
Mm.
but Jackie will attest to the Freedom of Information
Mm.
Act requests can range from how many voters, what parties, it's massive sometimes, the amount of work that we have to do for these things. It can take weeks.
Mm.
So, like I say, we have to retain all of the ballots for 22 months after an election, because if there's a recount, if there's or whatever, it's a state law. So. And then we also are subject to audit on any election.
So what is the cost of that? I mean, that's not something that you would normally expect on a regular basis. Is the cost of that included in your budget? What
Yeah.
monies? case?
Well, yes, if we had to have a recount, that's when we would bring in the registrars. Because anyone who works the actual election cannot do a recount. So it has to be registrars.
Somebody else.
And then we can also enlist the help of town clerks from other communities. So it's kind of a club, for the Cape and Island clerks. If your town is picked for a recount and it's just a random audit or a recount, you may be asked to go and help. And it's a good idea to go because you learn a lot. We sent our registrar down to Barnstable when their vault wouldn't open.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember reading
last
about
year.
that. Yeah, they couldn't
Yeah.
open it.
She was there she was there from midnight till 5 o'clock in the morning.
Was it just, what was the final reason for,
The vault just malfunctioned.
oh, really?
It's still broken.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not good, not good.
Ours works fine.
Oops.
Knock on wood.
Are there any other questions from folks on the town clerk and elections budget?
Did you say your budget went down? I mean,
Well,
went
overall,
slightly up, right?
overall. Mostly because of salary line.
Yeah, with
am
Cindy's
I missing?
departure and Linda's replacement.
Go to the top line.
Top line.
The top line, salaries.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Overall budget went up, right?
No, 140,
197 to 203.
146 to 140. Oh, I'm sorry. I read that. Of salaries.
Are you talking about the overall of everything?
Total operating budget for the department. FY 24 is 197
Mm-hmm.
To 203.
to
Yeah.
203.
Right. Right.
The other thing you have to remember, I think, in all of our departments is that there are a lot of things that support are departments that are not in their individual budgets,
Mm-hmm.
right? So IT, a lot of different pieces that
Mhm.
are in other budgets. Including mine, I mean, I'm not.
Yep.
Yeah, the salaries are about the same, 184, 184.
Yep.
And the expenses went from 197 to 203.
Mhm.
And I think
The total operating
that-
budget.
Right.
I'm sorry, the
Expenses
expenses
went
went
from
12
12 to
to
18,
1218, yeah. And the total 197 to 203, so that's 6,000.
Yep.
Yep. Are there any other questions on the town clerk and elections budget?
Yeah, it's a minor point, just a question, though.
Mhm.
Can, under the doc tags, I noticed a lot of
Yep.
printing and
Yep.
postage. Is there any way to do that electronically? This will come up in other departments too.
Um,
So maybe you have to do it by law or
I think
something.
we have to do it by law.
Yeah.
We have the animal licensing module that you
Yeah.
see.
Mhm.
That is that's a part of City Hall systems where people can, pay for their dog license and upload the rabies certificate
Yeah.
electronically. But in order for the dog to get tag, that still has to be sent out by the town clerk. So that's where that
Not
comes
like
in.
in your car.
No, it's not like a piece of paper. The dog has to have an actual tag and so in that case, for the first year that we had the animal licensing, it was paid for by the police department. But this year Adam said, look, it's not in my budget. So basically could you move it over? So I'm
Understood.
like, okay.
Yeah, it's a minor point. I was just curious. I
Yeah,
think we could do electronic
that's it.
now.
I know, I would do it, but
Postage and printing going up for everybody. I
Yes.
think somebody told me they paid $1.25 for a copy somewhere.
well,
For one
I mean,
page.
for the town, and part of this, and Jackie mentioned this, that, for postage, the, vote by mail postage is a big part of, it's not part of my budget, thankfully, because it would be huge. You'd be surprised. We send out a lot of ballots by mail, and you multiply that by 4 for people who live within, who come into town hall,
In polling distance.
people who work here.
Mhm.
It's kind of like you can go downstairs and vote. We have in-person early voting this year for 2 weeks for the general election and 1 week for each of the
Others.
September and the March election. So we make it very convenient for people to come here and vote in
Is-
person.
Is that,
But if they can't and they want to vote by mail, they still can. It's the law.
that's what I was gonna ask. It's the law. You have to do all that
Yes,
mailing.
we have to.
But
Yes.
people like me should know that by signing up for mail-in ballots, I'm actually costing the town some extra money in postage
Yes, about 90 cents we estimate
per
per ballot,
election. Yeah.
per election.
And what percentage of people do you think are requesting mail-in ballots?
Right now,
Well, just in general, probably some of it was due to COVID issues
Right.
before,
It's
but
just
right,
crazy.
even
now.
if I go and look at 2023, it's probably about 60%.
60?
Yeah.
Mm.
60%.
I never thought of the cost. I just figure it's so
Nobody
hard.
thinks of the
It's so
cost.
hard to get through that red
I
light
know.
and make the turn in
I
here.
know it.
So why not have it sent
Yeah,
to my
yeah,
house?
I'm with you, Peter. I'm with you.
Very convenient, and
Yeah,
that's
but
the
it-
problem sometimes.
There's a cost.
There's a
Yeah.
cost, and the taxpayers pay the costs. And everybody got those postcards in the
Yeah, I
mail,
just-
Yeah,
the
just
vote
got
by
it.
mail.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that
just got
came
it
out
the
of
other day.
your state taxes.
State
So-
taxes,
That's also a
Mm.
but it's
cost.
law.
It
You
is.
have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions from the folks? Do I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 budget for the town clerk and elections budget?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Russ is first, Tom is second. Do I have any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Roy, aye.
Aye.
Joanna, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You were an aye, Peter? 7, 0? Yep, 7-0. Is we're missing 2 people today.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Mary.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you for coming.
Have a good evening.
Yes, yes.
Very informative. Thanks, Rich, for giving me the heads up.
Okay, so, I don't know where, let me see, which one do we want to go to next here?
Mary, I'll bring up Jackie's budget. Or
You want to do
elected-
Jack,
it-
the
it-
town
yeah,
administrators?
Yeah, and while she's going over that, I'm gonna run down and give you our fiscal year 24 year-to-date budget report. I already have it printed out for you guys, so.
Wait a minute. I think we've got to find it in our binders here.
I'll bring it up on the screen here too. You can find it. Here it is.
Here it is. I have a 51, page 51, 52.
41 of 210.
Page 40,
I'm in-
41
I don't have municipal,
for town administrator.
oh, town administrator, 41, did you say? Tim?
41.
41?
I got these expensive tags on mine.
Me too.
I have some too, but I don't, I didn't put one on for this one. Page 41. There we go, yeah. Okay,
Is that-
Oh,
Yeah, we
do you
do.
want me to present it or you want to just ask questions? There's really not much change in this budget this year. Oh, what's he doing? Is he oh, there we go. So the salaries, the 2 salaries for project and procurement and executive assistant are fixed by law contracts. My salary is a projection at this point because my contract is up June 30th. So this is a negotiation year for me. So that's a placeholder. Other than that, I don't think we have too much.
Is that your starting point then?
What,
Is
excuse
that
me?
your starting point in negotiations?
I'm undervaluing her. I'm sorry, Jackie.
That is what I will be asking for, whether the select. But I don't think we've increased much. I mean, I actually, if we had more excess capacity this year, I would ask for some more training money. And some more conference money because we have more and more staff interested in our educational workshops and incentives. The Suffolk Management Program we've had each year for the past, I think, 2 years, we've had 3 staff go. And that's it's a beginning of the Suffolk Masters Program in Public Administration. And they do it from September through May, every Friday. And it's at a site usually on the Cape or in Dartmouth, so they can do it. So that's a great program and we've had wonderful, this year we have 3 staff going, but we usually have pretty good participation for that.
Do we pay the tuition for that too, or just?
We
the
pay
travel?
100% of the tuition, which is, it's a total deal. It's $2,500 a person for that. And I think they get 5 courses, 4 or 5 course.
is that
courses.
under the travel and conference section or?
It's under townwide professional development.
Professional on
Oh, up there.
135?
It's
Yeah,
up under
Under
professional.
professional and technical.
Yeah, 135.
So does that cover more than your department, Jackie?
Yeah.
Oh,
any-
that's that's the
So
whole
a
time.
lot of this, what you'll see in my budget is a lot of townwide things that just live in my budget and including things like office supplies and postages, you
Yeah.
know, they're just centralized.
Makes sense.
So is the, under the temporary that salary is temporary, who? Is that a person or is that, because last year, last year you had $260, so what's your actual, so now it's,
So we're holding that in my budget because there often comes a time when either, we'll be way behind in something, we'll have a staff absence. They're coming back to work, but for instance, in certain departments like inspectional services, community development, if a clerk is out for too long in those departments,
you
we
bring in
have,
somebody?
right, we have conservation filings, health filings, we have a lot of, they have a lot of actual statutory work they have to do within a certain amount of days.
Timing issues.
So we will call in someone and we didn't really have a place to carry those
Mhm.
amounts. It's really just, for that, in case
So
we
it's,
need.
again, it's sort of like a town
Yes.
item.
And that
so
can
to
be
speak.
used in any department for any reason.
Okay. So essentially, the salaries are just you and this, and currently Kayla.
And Shayna.
Oh, Shayna, that's right. I did see that. Shayna, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Last year, we saw a lot of changes in rentals and leases. That looks like that's kind of settled out.
Settled
now.
out, yeah.
We're gonna see that in the other departments too, Rich. That's pretty settling out.
Rentals and leases, I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, and last year, there's a lot of discussion around, the rentals and leases, and some of the leases I think were up and had to be renewed. I don't know, if it was for office equipment or whatever, but it looks like,
Yeah.
just like in Jackie's and a couple of the others that I looked at, it looks like it's pretty flat, so.
Yeah, we had
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
25%
copy
increases last
contracts and
Yeah.
stuff like that, yeah.
we centralized a copier contract, so there's not too much outside in the departments. It's all under Jackie's central purchasing.
Thank God, because that used to be a nightmare.
But everyone buying.
We got one more year on that contract.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, yeah.
So your number one unfunded would be more training and conference.
I think so, yeah, for this overall budget.
You have a lot of staff asking. and
Yes, I
unfunded.
mean, more and more, which is good.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that we want to encourage, obviously. And it's a perk that we can give our staff that helps them feel like they're moving towards career goals without having to change towns or.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is a benefit for us.
Yeah, so it's good that there's a lot of participation, and certainly if we had more participation, I mean, if they asked, we would try and fit it in, but it's just that's a stable line item and it probably should be going up at some.
You don't
point.
have training for like police and fire in here though, right?
No,
That would
they
be
have their
separate.
own. And we get a lot of free training through our insurance company, Maya. So they will offer, yes, free trainings, and Lori Barr, our HR director, is very good at taking advantage of those for staff. We don't take advantage of them as much as we should because we get insurance credits if staff participates in those. So there are a lot of free webinars and trainings that they can go to, but for true professional development, the Suffolk program in finance and the Suffolk program in general management, those are the ones that
Finance
are more
and general
popular.
And actually, those insurance trainings are one of the things that Mira, now that we have her in place.
Yep.
That position will be taking on to support me and Lori in identifying those trainings and getting them out to the departments to take, because we can get a pretty good 1 to 2% rebate on certain aspects of our policies for completing those trainings. So it's worthwhile and it's good training. So
Yeah.
Mm.
A lot of safety training, things that will make, less mistakes. Keep people healthy.
So essentially what you're saying is that you're paying for people to get trained under the professional and technical with the 135, and you're paying for people to cover for them under the salaries temporary. Sort
I'm
of-
not really
sort of.
cover for them for training. We don't usually backfill
Oh,
for
oh.
training, but we backfill if someone's
Sick.
sick
Oh,
or
sick.
out
Oh,
for
okay.
extended periods of time.
Okay.
That's usually when we use that, which is not often. but when Rich came, I think we put it in the budget a couple of years ago because when Rich came, there wasn't any place for it if we needed that.
Mhm.
So I think that's why we are carrying it. A good thing.
What's also for project costs, if you have an extended project or administrative job that has to be completed, you could hire an intern or a semi, part-time person for a few months out of that line to accommodate that.
Maybe this is an HR question when she comes in, but how's the turnover, exclusive fire and police,
Well, I was just talking about that with Kayla actually this afternoon. So Lori has been extremely busy since we've brought her on. I think the truth is prior to COVID, our turnover was very low. Post-COVID, it is a different world entirely. And I think even though we're an employer that has a lot of benefits and we allow remote work and, I think we're trying to be as progressive as possible, but we're still seeing a lot of movement, and part of it is people retiring. I think we lost a lot of the workforce post-COVID, and that's normal because they're aging on and they're retiring, but
yeah,
it's a combination.
yeah.
I don't think we're struggling as much as some other towns, but like, for instance, this past year, we had openings in DPW for several months. So that I do not remember that happening in my 10 years here.
I know
So,
industry's been looking at this obviously because the table switched, where
Yes.
the employee was in control of more of the market. But now what I'm hearing from employers right now is that's turning slowly back. People are staying,
oh,
they're not
good.
seeing as much movement. I wouldn't say it's back to where it was,
Yeah.
in the previous, but they're seeing less movement and more of an employer control of the marketplace.
Yeah.
than it was the employee.
Rather than the employee, it's him or herself.
Yeah,
to
there's gotta be a
ask-
balance, you know what I mean, obviously.
We'll have to ask her really, because if we
Yeah.
take out fire has a lot of turnover right now.
Yeah.
But I know her first year here, she filled 24 positions, which had never, I can
That's a
assure
lot.
you had never happened before.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
sure. I saw you just got a police officer out of the academy recently anyway.
Yeah.
So I have a question on, and you mentioned that your contract is up on 6/30/24.
Yep.
Is your contract for a set number of the years, like 3 years or? So,
Yes.
so, okay, I didn't know how that worked. So is there an increase when the contract is put together under normal circumstances? Is there an increase each year that's in the contract? In other words, you
Yes.
start out with whatever the amount is, and then it increases some percentage for the next 2
Each year,
years.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's predictable. Once we have a contract, it's
Mhm.
predictable, it's
Mhm.
fixed.
For 3 years.
Okay, and is that contract, how is that decided with the select board?
100%, yeah.
Okay.
So the 5 of them, so the process is, we just sent out evaluation forms, so they evaluate my performance every year. So I usually tie the evaluation of the performance to the contract if we're in a contract year.
Leave us, please.
Like, come to that
Don't
TV.
want to see you here.
Jimmy Kimmel Show or something. Come out from behind the screen.
Just thought he was home in bed, but he's been here the whole time. The only thing he does is go into his office and close the door.
I thought he was home. He's been ill.
He's never home, Mary. He's
He
never.
doesn't
home.
like to be home.
This is his home.
No, I'm sure he likes to be home.
He gave up his apartment.
This
because
is
it was-
budget season. He's been
Moved
here
his
on
bed, moved his bed in
Sundays and
upstairs.
Saturdays. He's a very hardworking man.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
I wish he wouldn't infect us, but he is
I
very
know, I
hardworking.
can't believe he,
Well, he goes into
Should
his
I touch
office and
that
closes the
paper?
door.
I'm sorry. So
Where
So
were
you're
we?
talking about the evaluation.
Oh, so
form.
usually they evaluate me and then this is a year where we have to negotiate a contract, so
Mhm.
we'll be doing that right after.
So this is for 25, so we don't really know
We don't know.
what your,
But you put in.
It's a
miscellaneous.
placeholder.
We don't know if I'm gonna be here. That's the sad part.
Right. Be one of the 24 this year.
Now she really is negotiating. Look at her style, all right. That's good.
all I'm saying is that the figure that's in here is just an estimate.
Placeholder.
Yeah.
Best information available, right?
Just in-
So how can we vote on this?
What is an?
We can't vote on this.
What is an estimate? What figure is an estimate?
What figure is what?
Is an estimate?
Oh, I don't know. You'll have to ask.
Wasn't here, but.
You'd have, to-
We put a placeholder in.
I mean,
My
her
salary
salary, her
for-
salary is here.
It's in there.
It's here. It's going from, Rich has it going from 189, 280 to 205.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So hopefully, we'll get the contract done soon.
Yeah.
Is it always 3 years? Jay?
No, it can be 5.
Okay.
Some people want 5. 5 seems like a long
Yeah,
commitment.
yeah, because things can change.
Yeah. But it can be 5.
I mean, I remember, I think at one point, a couple years ago, we, the town, looked at what other managers were earning
Mhm.
in the area to see how your salary compared.
And they basically do that every contract.
Okay,
So I believe they've already asked for that information.
okay,
But you gotta do comparatively based on the size of the town and
yeah, yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah.
Is dollars aside, the length of the contract, is that typical of what other towns down here are doing?
3 years.
3 years
Yeah.
is typical, other than the 5?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so 3-year contract.
And as you know, it's not, I mean, the contract isn't, I'll get you a copy of it. It's not set in stone. It's basically, there's a notice period that I would have to give or that they would have to give.
Also, there is an opt-out, both sides.
Yeah, and there's a notice if they don't tell me they're not renewing my contract by a certain date.
So then they
then
can't
They
not
have to
renew
pay
it.
me a little bit. No, they can
Oh.
fire me, but they have to
Oh.
pay me.
Oh, like some money to cover.
Yeah.
Okay. So when would so it's your contract isn't up until 6/30/24. How does that affect this budget for 24?
It doesn't, I mean, I hope it doesn't because we've never gone into town meeting without a contract.
Mhm.
So, I mean, the town of Eastham historically has always had its union contracts ready for town meeting and its town manager contracts ready for town meeting. So I don't anticipate that the select board will drag it out.
So when would you expect to sign a new contract for the next 3? Because the town meeting is May 6th.
Right, so I would think that we would be, if they're looking
So
at
this
an
is January.
evaluation in February, March or April.
Oh, okay. So, but at that point, then we would know
Yeah.
exactly what it was going to be for next year and the 2 following years.
Yes.
Okay. So as I say, we can't really vote on this. Right?
Well,
Because
do
we
we,
don't
do we
know.
vote on all of these? I can't remember. Did
Well,
do this
we
last year?
Usually what happens is we wait until the end and then you vote on all the lines at the
It
end.
depends upon what the department is.
Okay.
Like we could do the one that we just did, but
Right.
we can't do this one because of your salary.
I don't know why we couldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't.
Everything else is projected.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mary, I'd just also offer, just to make, in case so everyone can recall, in the unallocated budget, there is a salary reserve that we carry of an amount of money. So for things like this, because it also could be instances where a police or a firefighter or an employee gets an educational incentive that wasn't planned for, or gets reclassified into a higher grade because of the job that they're doing isn't fit what they were hired for. And so we have a salary reserve to handle overages from estimates of salaries. So if Jackie was, say, 215 instead of the 205, we would transfer money out of that salary reserve to cover that. And so we'd still have a balanced budget.
Because I'm just looking at the unallocated and you have a line, salaries, parentheses, temporary. Is that what there's 70,000 in
back.
there? No, that.
Uh,
It's in the big
Big
unallocated.
unallocated. So it's got a proposed budget of 70,000. That's the one you're talking, does that sound about right, Rich?
Well, that's what I see is 70,000.
So it went from 60 to 7.
Yeah, that's what I have.
That's what Rich is saying you would use
It- it-
to
it-
cover any difference.
Cover, if it went over what we were just looking at,
Hmm.
it would be, covered in that. So where was I? I was on page 52.
Yeah. 52 would be.
Yeah.
That's the next one. We're just wrapping up. the next one.
52.
So do we vote on
Yeah,
Jackie's?
yeah, so do people feel comfortable voting on the budget for municipal administration and finance?
It's town administration, right?
I'm just,
Municipal
okay.
administration.
It's called municipal administration and finance.
Or do we want to do it as we've done it in the past and then go through 2A
Go.
at one of our last
Yeah,
meetings
okay, I'll do it that way.
and vote them all? at
Okay,
that?
I'll leave it up to everybody, what.
I
their
like the
thoughts
idea
are.
of doing it at the end, once we've seen the
Yeah.
whole picture, you know what I
You know, you
mean?
don't have to
Right.
be on the spot.
Because we will make changes. I mean,
Right.
we might not in the clerk's budget or in my budget, but there will,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
there
yeah.
will be
Oh,
changes.
I would agree. Yeah. I was just thinking that if, for the smaller ones, if we could get
Yeah,
it
then
out of
we
the
have to
way.
Keep
but-
track
that's
of which
fine.
ones we voted and which ones we didn't, so.
I'm sorry?
Then we'd have to keep track of which ones we
Yeah.
voted and which ones we hadn't. I think if we just
Yeah, yeah,
do
yeah,
it all
yeah,
at the
yeah.
end. it might be
My
simpler.
only thought is that if we do it at the end, we
You won't
we don't remember the discussion, but that's,
That's an issue.
I'm sorry?
Memory is an issue.
For you or for me? I can talk about me.
Yes.
And you? Okay, well, what are people's thoughts? Vote on this now or vote on the Article 2A items when we get to it? I'm open for discussion on how to, one or the other, I guess.
Why change?
Hmm?
Why change if year to year we've been voting
At the end.
at the end?
Yeah, okay.
I'm good. I'm good with
Okay,
that too.
so we will be voting on this at the end.
Okay.
So we have talked about the municipal finance.
Well, I don't think we did the finance, right?
I
We just
mean,
did the town administrator.
We
now.
did the town administration, I'm sorry, town administration, yeah. We didn't do, you're right, you are correct.
Now we're up to 50.
Now we're up to municipal administration, right? No, municipal,
Right. Administration. and finance.
municipal
Fund.
administration.
Mayor, I'm just gonna knock out this elected in general budget first, perhaps. It's a quick and dirty one.
Which one, Rich?
Elected in general,
Elected in general, it's the
Oh,
select board
oh.
salaries and
Oh,
your
yes,
reserve
yeah.
fund.
Page
Yeah.
34,
You see, I have to find it.
page 35,
Sorry, what, Peter?
page 35.
35?
First page.
Oh, gosh. I think I have it marked. Okay, elected and general budget, and as Peter and Tom have said, I have it as page 35.
There's no change. It's 13,000 for the 5 select board salaries and 200,000 for the finance committee reserve fund. No change from the prior years. Would like to increase the reserve fund if that had funds available to us, just as a way to maintain some reserves and to generate free cash in a nice convenient place, but we don't have that luxury, so we didn't increase it.
The Rich, the 200,000 that's under other charges and expenses, is that the finance committee reserve?
It is, yeah.
Okay. So we have the salaries are the select board and the moderator.
Oh, yeah, the moderator, yeah.
So it's essentially just the finance committee reserve of 200,000 and the select board salaries, part-time salaries and the moderator. So it's the select board is 12,005 and then the moderator is 5. Yeah, okay.
Being new, could somebody explain what the reserve fund is for?
The reserve fund is something that is sort of under the responsibility of the finance committee, and at the end of the year, when we have all the budget monies in and we find out that we are minus in some capacity or some lines. And let's say we put in a figure here for sand and and ice and stuff like that for the winter, and we end up having 9,000, not that, 9 storms, and it costs more. And so we need to find the money from someplace, and so the, would come from that 200,000. And we would vote on it at the end of the year with the
minor
finance
contin-
committee.
Minor contingency then.
Yeah, maybe, Rich, do you want to comment on, give a better explanation?
That's, no, it's fine. It's a
Mary-
practical example, and it's, and for extraordinary and unforeseen items is what the law says it.
Joanna?
I was just gonna say, since you gave the example of, you know, snow and ice, we can call it the slush fund, but I was just
Oh, my God. Very, very, very good, Joanna. Okay, any other questions on the, and you mentioned, Steve, the 200, we have 200 this year,
Yes, yeah.
and the year before that was 100.
And
I'm sorry. wait,
and what doesn't get
$200,
used.
yeah, same as
goes into
last
free
year.
cash, I believe.
Yeah,
2 years ago it was 100.
yeah. 2 years ago was, this current year is 200. They're budgeting for 200 for fiscal year 25, and last year was 100, and actually it's down here for in fiscal year 23, 148, so.
Actuals,
Spend.
Yeah.
actuals, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Is there a limit what you can put in there, Rich? Is,
There is, I think it's 1 or 2% of your tax levy, something like that.
got it, okay, thanks.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions or comments on the elected and general budget? Okay. Elected and general. So we are now down to, let me see. There is the municipal finance one. Let me see, where did I put that one?
Page 51,
Municipal finance, page 52.
51.
51. I had 50. 52, so it must be 51. Here we go. Okay, municipal administration and finance.
Yep.
You wanna-
So this
you wanna-
budget covers all the administrative / operating departments outside of town leadership, town manager's office. So there's quite a few components to it. If you're looking at page 51, the top part has all the salaries, which are consolidated into one departmental salary line, which will go over the detail. But the different components of the department, so to speak, are administration and finance. That's your finance director and HR director. Then we have divisions of the accounting division, treasurer collector division, assessors, technology or IT, and our media operations are all in this budget. And so page 51 kind of summarizes the amount compared to the prior years budgets. The biggest increases are typically going to be in the IT shop for a number of reasons, which we can talk about a little bit. And the treasurer collector is up a bit, which will go into the detail as well. If you go to page 54, that provides the detail of the salaries. Many of our employees are non-union employees because they handle HR, finance, or payroll related matters. And so they belong to our personnel code and have a step and a grade assigned to them. So all these salaries are at the various steps and grades. At the back of the operating budget book, if you're ever curious about the various steps and grades, there is a salary projection that lists all townwide employees with their union and the step and grade that jives with the contract provision that they're paid from. There are a couple of people that are on what we call the open merit plan, and that provides for a range in lieu of a step and a grade, which theoretically could provide for additional money based on merit or the market, as the case may be. And so that's myself, our HR director, and a treasurer. There's no new positions this year, and our staffing is adequate. And I can't envision wanting to add any more other than we have had a couple vacant part-time positions that we've been contemplating how to utilize. And there is enough work to consolidate that into a what we'll call a financial I've got the term I'm contemplating, but basically a floater that goes between all the offices. And with that position in place, we have a very solid administrative and finance staff that obviously is well-trained and are doing a good job, but also has a career ladder and a sustainability aspect to it, which is a common problem a lot of small town admin and finance departments have. In our case, we've got a division head and an assistant in each division, and we have administrative support, and that's Mira was the new position last year. And we have now this finance floater that can operate and provide support to each department and step up if the need were to arise because of someone moving on. So we have a little bit of a tiered system to support all that. We have been successful in running an intern program. And so really the biggest only change in salaries other than contractual arrangements is $2,000 under the temporary and seasonal salaries, just the cost of wages going up. But we do have a program through Cape Cod Tech where we get, last year, I think we had up to 3 IT technician interns, and we'd like to keep doing that program. And there's also a program through the Department of Revenue for finance mentorships. And so that's an opportunity for us as well if we can get a candidate. So that's been the problem there is finding candidates at our end of the world for that program.
Rich, was the assistant treasurer's collective position, looks like it went from 4 days to 5 days. Was that just because Sandra was working 4 days a week and your replacement was a full-time?
It wasn't 4 days, it was a 5-day, but Sandy was a 35-hour. And when we hired the position, went to 40
One is
hours.
40 hours.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So
Because
I guess, yeah, that is a change, yeah.
it's just based on the demand for the job. 5 hours.
Rich, I have a question. What are the tax title attorney services? It's on page 59.
Would you want to go in order here, or should I just go right to your questions?
I'm sorry?
You want to go in order, or you just want to go right to the questions, and we can, that's fine too.
He's going in order through the pages.
Oh.
I got a question on the personnel. Are you the only individual that's, I don't know what the right term is, lending services to other communities? Or is other people in this group also doing the same thing?
Theoretically, others could, but I'm the only one at the moment.
Where do your revenues go? Do you go back to your department, or does it go to another department within the?
We treat it like almost like a police detail. We have an agency fund.
Okay. Yep.
So the town will be billing another town for my work to them, and that money goes into an agency fund, and I get paid, my rate out of that, and then the town recovers that, and it goes back into the general fund.
How do you get paid, Rich, out of those monies?
Out of that agency account. So I don't get paid any extra out of the general fund budget. I just get paid.
So do you submit some sort of hourly piece of paper saying I've spent 4 hours or something?
Yep.
Okay.
Rich, not to go forward on you, but back on page 52, you just talk about the increases in professional, technical, and operational and program costs.
Yeah, probably when we get to the IT page, that's going to explain that the most, Tom.
Okay, I'll
Most of
hold.
it is IT licensing.
Okay, great, thanks.
I'm going to move to page 56, which is the finance budget. It's a nominal budget. You might remember a few years ago, we secured a new audit contract. It had some savings associated with it. In the following year, when we identified those savings, we also at the same time kind of developed an HR function. So largely this budget is supporting the HR function, professional development and training with HR and the dues related to HR. And also a couple of dues that I still belong to the Government Finance Officers Association. The other thing that's changed are 4 administrative vehicles used to be paid out of the building department. They are now handled mostly Mira. And so if there's any small repairs that are needed, it's $2,500 there. That's coming out of other departmental budgets. And then the 4,500 was the balance of those audit savings. And at the moment, we do have people going out of the finance department going to the Suffolk University training. And so that's a source to pay that out of, since Jackie's training budget is taxed a little bit with the number of people we're providing that for.
How does that, the program work with the EV cars that the town has? We have 4, is it 4
We have 2 EVs and 2
hybrids?
gas vehicles. The EVs are new, don't really require a lot of maintenance, but we do have to have, periodic maintenance, and then the gas vehicles need periodic repairs and oil changes, and then they all need to be inspected, of course. But
I do have to thank, maybe it's Mira, the 2 EV stations that were out of sync at the library for, I don't know, it seemed like 2 years or more, are now fully functional.
yeah, that's all Mira, and that's the point of having people in these positions. If you want to get things done, we need people to do them. Not, we can't have, too much on any one person. And so having a deep bench is very helpful. And she's done a great job taking ownership of getting that done. What ended up happening is through her persistence, we ended up getting the 4 stations we have, 4 stations, 8 charging heads, fully replaced for free, reshipped to us. And then that was a learning experience for us too, because then our facilities shop had to learn how to, connect to them, which, took them some time, but it's great. We all learned more than we thought we ever going to learn about charging stations and EV support. So the next thing is now looking at getting the online web access, which we have, and then contemplating whether you'd like to start charging for this. It seems like that would be an easy discussion, except that it might cost us more to provide this option to charge than it might be to just provide the electricity.
All those stations are free?
Right now,
Right
yes.
Yeah.
Explains why they're all being used.
Yeah.
That's right. That's when you can't get them fixed, it takes forever. And I'm saying at least 2 years, it seems to me, we had 2 out of order at the library.
I think one of the problems with these things is they offer them to us, the state does, with incentives. And some of them are, free or low cost. And then you get them, they don't tell you that there's no one who repairs them, fixes them.
No maintenance, any.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then you're left calling,
Everybody and their
Island and-
grandmother.
Buyer beware.
Yeah.
Free. Yeah.
So, exactly.
Sort of a pain.
Okay.
I'm gonna move to page 58, which is our town accountant division. Not a lot of change there, but we are anticipating an increase in audit services. As a matter of fact, our audit firm has merged with a national firm, but I got a call over the weekend from the partner that does our audit, and he agreed to send me a additional 3-year proposal with no fee increase prior to the merger taking effect. So we're locked in for 4 more years. So that's good, but we do have every once in a while additional audits we have to do because we participate in the school districts for what's called the end of the year report. So that reflects why we're seeing an increase there for the upcoming year. And then the only other increase is a nominal increase for training costs to the annual accountants conference. We have to send our assistant and our town accountant. Tina was just certified this past year as a certified government accountant. And as part of that certification, she has to maintain certain amount of attendance at the conference and other continuing professional education, which we certainly want to support her to keep doing. So
Rich, who's the audit firm we use?
it was called Powers and Sullivan, and hopefully I'm not jinxing them, but effective February 1st, they've merged with Markham, which is a national provider.
Are they on the Cape?
No, they
No.
weren't even in Massachusetts till a couple years ago, but they're buying up, small audit firms with specialty niches.
This is something that's gonna get hotter, going forward, because the kids aren't going into auditing anymore. There's no one graduating the profession.
Well, that's exactly the problem. I, had this conversation with, they called me up to talk to me about it because I have a similar experience, but, that's it. Audits are much more remote now than they used to be, particularly for Eastham. We provide remote access from our audit firms to our ledgers, and some of them have drop boxes and OneDrives that we can share documents on. So they don't need to be here as much as possible, as much as they used to. And but they still can't get staff. But now when you're a larger firm that's operating across the country, you could be in Boston, you could be in Chicago, you could be on Cape Cod, but you can still do the audit work.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go to page 59, which is the treasurer collector's office. And this part of your question, Tom, with professional and technical, this is a bit discretionary, but felt justified to increase the tax title attorney services from 20,000 to 30,000. That's the biggest change in the budget. Doing that work, it is now more time consuming than it has been in the past, and the rates of attorneys have increased. And so that reflects those two realities. The simple reality is we haven't spent up to that 30,000 in the prior years, because we cut off the attorney and work just doesn't get done. It's the reality of it. So if $10,000 or $20,000, you can only do what you can do, and when you reach your limit, you're done. And if he hasn't finished the work, and there's no way going into a tax title case, these are people that have been liened and need to be brought to land court or head towards foreclosure. We can't pursue those cases if we don't have the funding to pay the attorney to do it. And so that you end up with a backlog of cases. And we've made a lot of good headway, done some of the work, administrative work, and running of documents and filing of documents in-house. But at the end of the day, you still need the attorney on a lot of this, and that's what reflects the increase there.
So you think the 30,000 will be enough, though, to keep the process moving forward on those liens of foreclosures that we have?
And I shouldn't, I don't want to alarm you. I mean, we don't have a backlog, and we have great taxpayers. We have very low percentage of properties that are even liened. And of those that are liened, generally those liens are paid off within, 3 to 6 months. So great collections, and a great attestation to Maya Golding, our treasurer, and the treasurer's collector's staff. They send out notifications and reminders, and in very few instances, we have payment plans, and they execute those payment plans and follow through on them. So at the end of the day, we don't have a lot, but what we don't want to have is, we don't want to develop a lot. And so by having the funding for pursuing tax title and collection activity, it prevents, it's like a future preventative medicine. There's a few towns on the Cape. If you, every, 5 to 8 years, the Cape Cod Times does a story on outstanding tax liens of all the towns, and it's the same towns it's been for 30 years because they never address and get caught up on the work that they need to get caught up on. And so you don't want to turn into one of those.
Got it. Okay, good. Thank you.
How many houses have we taken as a result of this issue?
It's a good question, Mary. I don't know that, have we done one, Jackie, since I've been here?
Oh, since you've been here, yeah, we did 2 before. One since, and it's more pieces of land than it is houses. And sometimes we go through the process, so we do spend money and time going through the process, and then people pay their taxes, which is fine, really. I mean, that's what we want. We don't want to get their property. We want to have the back taxes paid, so.
But we don't get to charge them the costs incurred to.
Yes,
Get them-
yeah, they pay
We do.
fines, yeah,
Okay,
they do.
gotcha. Okay, so that covers the
Yep.
cost of something like
Yep,
this.
and it goes up pretty fast when you have the fines and the interest, so
But in the last,
it's not a huge thing.
last couple of lots in the last 10 years.
Right,
Sound about
yeah.
right? Okay.
And I think, partially, we hesitate to take property,
Yeah.
So there's always a thought about it before we take anyone's property, but yeah. I think both our current assessor and our current treasurer are much more efficient. Rich has really, I think, encouraged them to be very efficient with our resources, and so they're following all the statutory pieces. They're not they're not doing it for years like I think past treasurers have done, because, it's difficult and they don't want to do it, so they avoid it. Our current group is really keeping up with their, responsibilities.
What is there? I've seen every once in a while, different towns, they have in the papers, they list all of the folks that owe money. The names, the names of the street, how much they owe in taxes, how much they owe in the CPA funds and all that stuff. Is there a requirement that be printed?
Yeah, I think it may have changed actually, so I'd have to double check. It might be just a website notice now, but yeah, it
Yeah.
used to be a requirement to be printed. Whenever you're leaning properties, you got to advertise that the lien exists.
Mhm.
And we do that. We just don't have a lot. I was shocked when I first got here, the low level of, very high level of payment. I think we had something like 32 people that were on the lien list this year, 32 properties. And of those 32, probably by the time we got to the actual day of doing it, tax lien taking is what it's called, probably only had like 20, which is not a lot. So
Mhm. Were there's 7,000 properties,
I think 6,100,
61 in town? Oh, okay.
that number sticks in my head.
Yeah, mm.
Might even
Like-
be a little less, maybe 58, something in that range, 58 to 60.
likewise, on the, much like the accounting training budget for treasurers has gone up a couple $100. The biggest thing there probably is just an extra membership for our assistant treasurer, who's now attending professional conferences and meetings. Cape and Islands Treasurers Group is a very active group and provides a lot of good information. So, I'm moving
So
on
I
to,
oh, sorry. So Rich, I just have a question with just back to the tax title attorney. You were saying that if we proceed to deal with an issue of that nature, the folks that we are dealing with have to pay us back for.
right, whenever we settle a tax lien or a tax foreclosure case,
Yeah,
the settlement always includes interest of up to 16% plus costs and demand charges,
so
costs including attorney's fees.
so what if we get the money back, why are we showing 30,000?
Because state law does not allow you to add receipts to budgeted appropriations. They stand alone. So you have to appropriate the money. When
Oh,
the revenue is in an account called penalties and interest on taxes, it's in our revenue, local receipts pages in our budget books.
okay.
And remember, the budget is just the plan of spending. It's
Mhm.
not,
Yeah,
nothing.
coming back.
And I'm assuming you gotta put something.
Revenue.
The tax attorney is not gonna wait until you settle to get.
Right.
right.
Yeah, right.
I don't know any attorneys that do that. If you do, let me know.
Any other questions on the municipal administration and finance budget?
Well, we got more. We got the assessors on page 61,
Page 61?
and that has not changed too much.
Yeah.
Again, a little bit more on training because we have a very active assistant assessor now. So again, it's a common thing you'll see in each administration finance division is, been focused on training for developing the newer staffs, particularly the assistants. But the new thing here in the budget is in the middle, under
Mhm.
operational program costs, the $6,500. I think you've heard from this, from Colleen before regarding this on the near map.
Yep.
Licensing costs, which has been a great tool for
Mhm.
Colleen to identify new growth. So this drives revenue growth. So we get all the building permits and we do inspections on new construction to make sure we can pick it up and add it to our tax levy each year. But then there's always other things that maybe somebody did something without a permit or we missed something. And that's what this near map does. It allows us to pick up decks and showers and docks and things like that.
So I know we discussed it with Colleen when she was talking to us about the whole assessing process. So that 6,005 is an annual, we'll be paying for that annually.
Correct.
It pays for itself, right?
Oh, yeah, and information.
Well, making sure the permits are being.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just to point out, we're in one more year, a third of the 4-year contract for our outsourced inspectional services program, where we inspect 8% of all the townwide properties each year over a 10-year. Does that sound is that right? 10-year cycle, 11-year cycle, 8% to get to a. By law, we're required every 10 years to inspect 100% of, re-inspect 100% of the properties in town. And doing our annual values. So that's a contract. That's the biggest cost of the assessing department other than our salaries. And we've been able to hold that cost steady for 4 years, one more year of this, and subsequent year, I would anticipate a modest increase in that cost.
Every 10 years, you gotta go to every property in the town? Is that what you're saying?
Right, every 10 year, by law, you have to re-inspect, list and measure, what's called list and measure all the properties. And so obviously you're better off doing that as you go instead of waiting till year 9 and being a big rush. And then, you also miss a lot of stuff in between too if you wait. So our approach, the more common approach nowadays, is you do it a little bit each year. So you go through a cycle, you break the town into different spots, and you do spots so that by the time you get to the 10-year, you've got 100% coverage.
So a combination of that and this GIS software, is that what gets you the complete picture of what's going on?
Exactly.
Okay, because you can't get everything by just flying the.
No, you actually have to go do what's called the list and measure. You got to actually take measurements and record it and document who inspected the property.
I was out walking one morning and I came back to my house and there was a car that I didn't recognize in my driveway. And as I not pulled in, but walked into my driveway, a gentleman came from around the corner of the house. And so I introduced myself and guess who he was? The assessor. There, he was measuring my house when I walked into the driveway. He had been on the east side of the building. But my concern is that at the time, it must have been maybe a month or month and a half ago now, that just about everybody on my street, nobody's there at this time of the year. So if he went to any of those homes, he could not have gotten in, even if they had accepted him.
Well, is he going into the house?
Yes.
You're not required to go into the
He's not
house.
required,
Right.
not
No.
required, but he'll ask you if he can come in.
And a lot of people say no.
Yeah.
Because they're really measuring for encroachment on property lines, additions. On the
Well,
property.
they want to see what's new in the house too, if they can get in. Did you put a nice media room in your basement? Did you put a kitchen or
Sure.
bathroom?
Should have a, building permit or stuff like that.
Oh, sure, but I'm just saying lots of times that doesn't happen either.
Got it.
Page 63 is the IT budget. And that's again where you'll see under professional technical some increases. Our outside support, we've been able to hold steady. And matter of fact, we might actually be reducing in the future. But where you see a lot of growth is under software licenses and contracts. And I'm not a licensing or IT expert by any means, but I understand business, and this is kind of the trend that we're seeing in the IT world. Lots of our licenses now are no longer licenses where you you buy a disk and load it on your server, and now you can run 100 machines off that one license. Everything is a per seat per month license fee, and so that's a business model that most IT companies are adopting now, and it's better in a lot of respects, and we don't need to keep loading a lot of new stuff and updating machines and all that. But on the other hand, it is more costly as well. So What you see increasing is our financial management system, going up to about 45,000, a $5,000 increase. We've been able to bring that down over the years, rearranging how we've done some business and some work and dropped a module in prior years, but we're contemplating keeping the same modules we have. People GIS, which is community development GIS application, which processes a lot of our online services, is another area that's increasing. That's a combination of inflation in the cost of the per seat license, but also we need more licenses because we now have more users. So as we transition to an online payment, online providers to do things and provide customer service, if it gets too busy, you need to offer more, get more licenses, which has a cost associated with it. So they get you coming and going.
But this is different than the mapping software.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Communications line we feel comfortable with. We're actually there is inflation in that area too, but now that we're fully staffed in the IT and administrative departments, we can do a better job and actually look at what we're getting. And so what we've been finding is that we can discontinue some of these cell phones that we've been using, some of the accounts that we've had, and start consolidating things. And so that reflects why we're able to, even despite some inflation, hold that line item steady. Operational costs, the big one is Adobe Cloud licensing. Totally changed its business model, and it's all cloud licenses now, and we needed 35 of them. Is a good example of that's $20 per month per seat. And so, years ago, only 1 or 2 or 3 people might have needed the full Adobe suite of software, but now everybody does that. If we're trying to do things electronically, edit, markup documents, retain documents, you need what's called the Pro license. So we have several more Pro licenses than we did back in the day. So instead of maybe 2 or 3, now we probably have 12 or 15. And those are more expensive than the basic standard licenses. And so that's a good example of a cloud-based licensing on a per seat basis. And the same, well, the other new item is just a few rows down, the Office 365 backup. We used to do this on premises, and we do have a memory storage device to do that. However, our email and Office suite products are now using Office 365, which is a web-based product, which has a lot of advantages and allows us to share documents, be more efficient instead of having everybody saved on their own personal drives. But then what we realized is that data doesn't easily or effectively get stored on our server, on our storage device. And so this Office 365 backup is by each user account on a per month basis. And it automatically backs up data to the cloud, which helps us with fulfilling document requests and records requests. So we kind of have to have this in order to efficiently respond to various requests that we get and to ensure that everybody's data is backed up. And so that is a new addition to the IT budget.
Rich, have we ever, have we ever been hacked?
We get attempts all the time, but cross our fingers, we've been very successful. And that's part of the regimen that we put in place over the last couple of years. Charisse has done a good job with our outsourced provider, Dan Matthew from Datalist. Implementing systems, we have a pretty robust monitoring and alerting system that will alert Charisse and Datalist if something like that occurs in the middle of the night. There's no guarantee that we'll wake up and get it, but that is actually a good point and a good, that's something you might see in the future in a budget request is monitoring of our network, 24/7 monitoring through a data center. So as soon as you get an alert, you can immediately shut down systems and stop any damage from occurring. There are services that do that.
We don't have anybody supplying cybersecurity right now, Rich, on our systems?
We have lots of security, and we have lots of alerting. It's just it's not like anyone's on 24/7 watching it.
Okay, got it. How many towns, do most towns have 24/7 alert, Rich? or-
Very few have it.
Really?
I was the cusp of doing it in Yarmouth, but that was a year I had to cut $6 million out of the budget, so that one didn't survive. So
Is it very expensive to have?
can be, but it's not as bad as you might think. It goes to a what's called a NOC. Usually, this firm's out there, Datalist, one of our providers actually offers this. It stands for Network Operations Center, and so basically, it's a third-party provider that has people on duty. They're not sitting there at a machine, but they'll get alerts on a phone at their house at 3 a.m. in the morning, and they're tasked with responding and being available. So they always have, a couple people on duty 24/7 to monitor alerts, and they, get, pretty crazy in how they can get those alerts. They can have, sounds, alarms going off. They could have lights turning on and all that good stuff, so that they make sure they get up and address whatever issue is being alerting them.
Well, I know in industry, this has been a big thing for, over the last, 10 to 20 years now, you know what I mean? So
Coverage.
I'm just surprised hasn't been mandates on the towns to do this for the systems that you have, thinking about, I know there's a cost associated, but it's a risk trade, right?
What's the damage?
Yeah, what's the damage of having, of losing the data and trying to do the recovery and shutting down the town for 2 weeks while you go find out where everything is, in this day and age?
People.
I'm just wondering, are we at too much risk here? Are we taking on too much risk?
What's the cost on something like
Yeah,
that?
that's a good question, Steve.
Yeah, I can get you the costs on it. We do have, we've made a lot of changes in our IT environment over the last couple of years. And the
Mhm.
biggest ones of them have to do with storage and backing up and now everything, in addition to our mass storage device that is on site, we also have that synced with a cloud-based backup. And that's what this Office 365 is. It's an add-on to that cloud-based backup. So everything it gets stored to our storage device on site, also gets synced onto a cloud backup. So if we need to restore, we could unplug our storage device from downstairs, or take it and go wherever we need to go in the event of a natural disaster. Or if that's not available to us, or for whatever reason, we can download it from a cloud and spin up it. We also have what's called VMware virtual servers, so we can spin up new servers from any location and download data onto VMs, which just didn't exist 3 years ago when I got here.
And those systems provide their own cybersecurity protection.
Yeah, they're all third-party providers, Oracle Cloud, Adobe,
Okay,
all those types of things, Barracudas.
okay. So there is protection from that. Okay, got it. Okay, thanks.
So unfortunately, that's a big budget driver for the administrative services department is IT and technology. But at the end of the day, I think it's all well worth it, a good investment for protection. And I got to say, there's not any increase in this, but the remote management agents, which is $10,200, that was a new item a year ago. And I remember you guys asking me some questions about it. That has been a lifesaver. This is an agent that gets installed in every PC that we deploy through town, so that we can remotely access it, monitor systems, shut down systems, cut them off if it does get a malware or some sort of attack on that through that PC. We can shut it down, and we can monitor systems. So we have a much more insight, not only into servers but all PCs now. So that helps the security environment. So we've been building up for several years to get to this point. And going forward, I think we are kind of where we need to be. It's just now, is there more in the way of security that you might want to add? So that's more discretionary. All the stuff we've done up to this point really wasn't discretionary. I mean, of course it is, but you really you're at your own risk up to this point. We've taken a lot of risk. Finally, on page 66 is the media department. This is Devin and all the things that he does for all the meetings, and Wayne. So they've done a great job. We've had Mike coming back part-time, and we're always reaching out to others, trying to develop relationships where we can get some more part-time folks to help out. But no real changes here. he's had a sufficient budget. And it remains to be sufficient. We would like to see that we can do some more professional development. That's a matter of me sitting down with Devin and others and seeing, what opportunities they can avail themselves with. But historically, this is all kind of commingled in with IT, and last year we decided it was worthy of breaking it out on their own.
Speaking of IT, Rich, I looked at the earlier salaries, and Wayne, who's helping us this evening and frequently does, is only down for 0.30. It seems to me he's here a lot more than that would indicate. Every time I'm here, he's here.
Yeah, he likes doing the finance committee, Mary. He likes you.
Likes
He doesn't do all of them though. No, it's good. No, I mean,
It's my favorite.
we love Wayne. He's always available when we need him. He does a great job. If we run over, then we'll have to readjust that. But I think we've been pretty good on that amount of time. And Wayne can only do so much too.
Yeah.
He gets tired. These meetings run late sometimes. So
Yeah, like tonight.
All right,
Any other questions from folks
yeah, it was good.
on the municipal administration and finance budget? Okay. So we are now down to, we're the unallocated.
yeah, I'll speak to that as well. That's on page. finding it in my book here.
151.
Yep, 151. And I'm gonna go to the detail, which is on 155. One of the big drivers that has me a little bit concerned, we did increase, is energy. Every periodically, I should say, we go through a process of procuring energy suppliers, which is our right under Massachusetts law. Everyone gets to choose their energy supply. You're not stuck with Eversource's base rate. Eversource provides delivery for us, but not necessarily our supply. So we had a very favorable contract. Cape Light Compact does this on behalf of all the towns on the Cape, of which they solicit participants to help them with that. And I usually participate along with the purchasing agent from Barnstable, really kind of the two that help drive it. But everybody has to vote. But we had a great contract for 3 years that is ending this June 30th. It was a flat rate for 3 years at a very low cost. And so, of course, that leads to the sticker shock for this upcoming year, where we're expecting upwards of a 50% increase in our supply rate, which when you factor it in, it's only a portion of our overall bill, about a 30% increase in electricity costs, effective July 1.
It's terrible.
So the cost didn't go up 30% on the budget. I'm hoping we've had some surplus there in the prior years, so it's a combination of increasing the budget and hopefully anticipating a little bit less surplus on that line item at the actual spending.
Do you
We
think
do
rates
have-
will, oh, sorry, do you think
And we-
rates will go down at all? Or get worse because of everything going on in the Middle East here?
Yeah, so last time we opted, it was such a good deal and was held steady for 3 years. We all elected to go with the 3 years. This year, since the sticker shock, we did a 1-year contract. And so we're going to go through the process again at the end of this year, because we felt that was a possibility or likelihood that rates would decrease.
Yeah.
So we're now we'll be on a 1-year contract for fiscal year 25. Hopefully we'll see some better results in the following year. One of the things I have Mira working on, she's getting involved in a lot of the energy efforts. You can see the breakdown between facility. Those haven't changed. I just can't change the bottom number. I don't have good indicators as to how that was calculated in the past. But we do have now with our green communities and our what's called Mass Energy Insights application, we have our all electrical accounts synced with Mass Energy Insights, which tells us the usage by facility. So going forward, I hope to improve this to know, of that total 185,000, which facility is using it the most. And of course, we have some potential solar opportunities that we're pursuing that we'll know more about in about 2 weeks. We're having site inspections. So that could be a cost savings to us. Likewise, go ahead.
I have a question on, under the, I'm looking at page 151, under employee insurance, where it's gone up $800,000 since 23.
Yeah. So I'll keep going then. We'll get to that question, Mary. If you go
Okay,
back to
yeah, go ahead.
157 is the property and liability insurance. That's a placeholder. We don't get those rates for about another maybe 2 weeks to a month, maybe. We'll get a quote from our provider. But this is a placeholder of 7.5%.
Where?
Which is the trends 10 to 15%, but we've had good experience and we manage our claims well, so that's kind of held that down. Now to
That's-
your question, Mary, I'm sorry, Tom?
I'm sorry. So that's what we're seeing, the 7.5% on page 157 there, Rich. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
158 is employee benefits. So Mary, you were asking about why is it going up so much? 'Cause
Yeah, the
insurance is
employee
very-
insurance.
Insurance is expensive. It has represented an area of savings for us. It's been generating the majority of our free cash. If you recall the last several years when we did year-end reviews, that's the line item that typically stands out. But the trend, health insurance trend is 10 to 12%. And the self-insured pool that we belong to is meeting on February 1st to set rates. So we'll know, but it's looking like a pretty much close to a 10% rate increase. I used a planning estimate of 7%, thinking that even if it comes in at the worst case scenario at 10, that has been a source of surplus for us in the last several years. Also, last year we started an effort to migrate employees to high deductible health plans. We haven't mandated it. It's optional, but high deductible health plans are a benefit to the employees, for those employees for that it works. It doesn't work for all employees, but typically healthy younger employees get more bang for the buck out of the high deductible health plan, where we provide them with a health savings account. We have to contribute to it, but typically that's going to have a cost savings of about 20% to us as the town, and about 20 to 30% to the participant, the individual, depending on the utilization. So it's a win-win for everybody if we can get people on the plan, if it fits the way they use health insurance. So I'm we got 10 people, I think it was, signed up last year, and I'm hoping to build on that. And so if we, to the extent we can get people into those plans and save about 18 to 20% on our end and give them a better product, I think that's a win-win for everybody. So I'm hoping to build on that success from last year as well.
Is that county-wide, Rich?
Yeah, well, not quite. It used to be everybody but Bourne belonged to it, as well as Martha's Vineyard. And then several years ago, Sandwich pulled out and went another direction. So it's everybody but Sandwich and Bourne at this point in a self-insured health insurance pool. We pay our own claims.
Right.
The other
Thank you.
thing that's been going on with that pool is they've had a number of successful years where they've been able to build up some surplus. So there's typically been a utilization of surplus to subsidize the rates that are charged to the town. And that's gone on for probably 5 years in a row now. But we're getting to a point where that group, still could use a small subsidy, but I don't anticipate it being as much as it has been in the prior years. So that always causes a spike in rates. So when you previously subsidize something, but then you don't, your increases go up a little bit, the amount of that subsidy. Above that is the Barnstable County Retirement Association. That's simply an assessment. They send us the bill and we have to pay it. We do get an early pay discount, so I make sure we take advantage of that. So you see that as a reduction. But health insurance is a 7 to 10% annual trend for us. And county assessments, I think, is about a 6.5% is what's projected up through the year 2038 until we are fully funded.
What's the regular assessment, Rich?
There's a regular assessment, which is for normal active payroll and retirees. And then there's if you participated in any early retirement incentive, which we did back in 2001, I think it was. You get assessed for that for, the length of that, which probably is 20 to 30 years. So it's like a legacy cost that you made a decision, 25 years ago and you're still paying for it type of thing. You can also get assessment, if you had, the county, for example, gets assessed because of the sheriff, when the sheriffs went to the state. There's all kinds of special things that could happen, but we're not subject to any of those. We're just subject to our regular payroll active employees.
And another question, what's Medicare? So do we pay employees Medicare premiums?
Not premiums, we pay Medicare tax, 1.45% on payroll. Our employees
On
are
the tax,
exempt.
I mean, yeah.
Our employees are exempt from Social Security, so we don't pay the 7.65 Social Security tax.
But you have to pay Medicare.
The county retirement assessment is kind of in lieu of that, if you want to think of it that way. But we're still subject to Medicare. There's still, and everybody's eligible for Medicare at 65. Which, not a little bit of an aside, but that was a thing I was involved with about 10 years ago, passing a statute that required municipal employees. It was called the Section 9 of Chapter 32B of the law was passed that required municipal employees to get off active health plans and go onto Medicare when you turn 65. It saved the towns a bunch of money.
So that 194 is what, half the Medicare tax
it's
for
one-
people over?
On everybody's salary, we have to pay in our employer contribution for Medicare. It's 1.45%.
4.5. Okay.
1.45.
Because my self-employed Medicare tax used to be 3.5, right?
Well, you're paying both sides of it,
Yeah.
Right.
your side and the employer side.
Yep, I get.
Rich, what are, on page 157. It's sort of halfway down. There's a line item called deductibles.
Yeah,
What does that mean?
we need to pay deductibles. If there's a accident with a police cruiser, it's covered by insurance, subject to either a $500 or $1,000 deductible. If there's building damage, it gets repaired. If it's covered by insurance, subject to a deductible. Excuse me.
How did we ever get a credit for the deductible in FY21? Seems like.
Yeah, so through our
impossible.
various participation, we can earn credits.
37?
And apparently, when I first started here, we used to credit that back to our appropriation, which, isn't an appropriate thing to do. So we don't now, but probably how it happened back then.
So in fiscal year 23, the total deductible for us came to 17,000 versus a budget of 42. So you're just keeping it at 42.
Yep. And that's always an option if these costs get to be too great. We have pretty attractive deductibles. It's always an option. Instead of $1,000 deductible, we can go to a $2,000 deductible. They'll keep the trend of insurance instead of being a 7 or 10% trend. Probably drop it down to 4 or 5%. We'll have charge less premium because we're accepting more risk, but then we're
Right.
on the hook for deductibles. But that would be a strategy we could take if we ever,
Yeah.
have to look to cut things or adjust things.
The bigger the deductible, the cheaper.
Right.
Well, we could save money doing that. You'd be sticking
Potentially.
your neck out a little, but it could be a long-term savings, right?
It's an analysis that's worth doing.
An analysis, yeah.
Got enough years.
I'd like to see that, yeah.
What the deductibles would come to.
Yeah,
If
much
you
you'd save in
increase-
premium
yeah,
and,
yeah.
I bet over time you'd probably save money. I don't know what our accident rate is, but not very high, is it, Rich?
Not too bad. And then the final set is on page 160, employment costs detail. Kind of already looked at this, but there's some new hire costs, particularly physicals and medical tests. That's 25,000. We have a lot more turnover than we used to, so that's an increase. We're not increasing the townwide training. This was Jackie was talking about earlier from 15,000. If we had the room, that would be an area we'd like to increase. And then at the top is that 70,000. That's the salary adjustment account to accommodate any reclassification of staff or errors in salary calculations or new contracts that are in excess of what we planned for in the budget. This kind of accommodates that. It also accommodates that if you have turnover and you're hiring a new employee at a higher rate than the old employee, which is more commonly occurring now too. This provides us a mechanism to fund. We'd transfer money from this into, say, the police department to cover that overage and then adjust in the next year's budget cycle.
But you don't have anything in the actuals for the last 3 years.
No, because it all transfers to the accounts that it's needed and it's spent out of the accounts where it is. And to the extent that might have been done, it's a good point. I can go back and look, Mary, but sometimes I think there's a tendency, especially like in the health insurance, you know how we have the reserve fund transfer, but we're also able to do year-end transfers with the vote of the finance committee and the select board, as long as we have savings and other appropriations. I think the last couple of years we've done those transfers as a year-end transfer and just didn't use this account. We could have, but we ended up using our health insurance savings to fund things that were short. So it kind of all gets mixed together. We probably could do a better job of highlighting that. That would be useful to know now that you point that out. Similar to how we do the reserve fund, your finance committee reserve fund, you see the actual transfers up in there.
Hey, Rich, I just had a question, on your note on 159. It says unemployment insurance is based on a factor of 1 historical value, but recent experience is a factor of 3 assigned by DUI. Maybe you can help me with what that stands for. Hopefully this is a short-term situation.
Yeah, Department of
It's a
Well,
DUA. I think it's
DUA.
DUA.
Unemployment Assistance, I think it is.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so what was the factor for 1 versus 3? Did we have a jump in
It
unemployment?
changed, probably because based on staff turnover and people submitted for unemployment, so we're a higher risk. That
Okay.
traditionally hasn't been the case, but
And that's more recent in the last year or two? Is that what you think?
yeah, we get audited on this every year on workers' comp and unemployment, and they adjust their, rates and premiums accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Rich, have we looked at getting out of the Barnstable County program to something that is less expensive, like the state program, GIS program?
For health insurance,
Yeah,
it comes up from time to time. The
Yeah, it
problem
comes
is,
up. The problem is everybody says they love this program, so you can't switch out of it. But I think there may be lower cost programs, particularly run by the state.
yeah,
and-
the state,
and
what's called the Group
Barnstable.
Insurance Commission, it's the GIC plan.
Yeah,
Problem with it is it's all subject to collective bargaining because it's cheaper, but the benefits aren't as rich. And so you're going from a benefit that you offered at a certain level, and now you're offering less of a benefit. So it's a bargainable item. So we'd have to collectively bargain that. And what needs to happen, and I participate in this health group, so I'm a little attuned to it. It hasn't happened for probably 8 years or so. But the GIC has what's called its benchmark plan, and we are allowed to adjust and change our plan design to be in line with what's called the GIC benchmark plan. And that hasn't happened for a number of years, and that has tendency to has a watered down effect to lessen the richness of the plans, which would affect the premiums that need to be charged. But keep in mind, it's one thing to say we could join another plan, but the challenge is we're on Cape Cod.
Yeah,
We're
that's what
remote.
happened last time.
And I always had a famous saying, and I hope I remember it because I haven't said it in a while. But basically, United States is the most expensive healthcare in the world. And the Northeast is the most expensive healthcare market in the country because of the teaching hospitals. Boston market is the most expensive market on the for teaching hospital reasons. Cape Cod, actually, because of its retiree and Medicare population, get lower reimbursement rates from the federal government, is the highest cost of healthcare in the state. So if we're the most expensive state, region, we're the most in the most expensive state in the most expensive country. What's that make us?
We're
The most
number one.
expensive health insurance in the world.
We're
And we
number-
are, and we're self-insured, which is the best way to be, meaning that it costs us what it costs us to have people be sick and have claims. There's no markup from any third-party insurance provider trying to make a loss ratio. So our costs are our claims. And so we have reinsurance and we get recoveries on those. We try to run wellness programs to limit losses. We have multiple different types of healthcare plans, including these high deductible plans that I'm trying to shift people to if it's appropriate and it fits their utilization. So there's lots we can do. I think a step that's going to occur probably in this upcoming year or two will be looking at changing plan design to have a change in benefits, which will help the premium basis. And that's the benefit of being in one of these regional groups, is you can be more flexible and you can adjust things much easily. You join the statewide program, you get what you get. It might be lower cost for the time, but then 3 years later, because everybody will promise you a great rate for 3 years, and guess what? Year 4 and 5, they're going to hit you up pretty hard, and you're stuck. You're captive with them now. The GIC plan's a good option for some towns, but remember, it includes they're the provider of last resort for cities of Springfield of the world. Those are the towns and cities that participate in GIC. So you're participating in a pool with the highest risk participants.
And the last time we looked, we really did look the last time you brought it up. And one of the issues for us is that there are a lot of plans that are available in GIC in Boston that are not available on the Cape.
You just can't get
so
providers.
we stick with, we have Blue Cross, we have Harvard Pilgrim. We can't do the Tufts, doesn't work down here. There's a lot of plans that just don't work down here. So it really limits what they have to what we would get if we.
What the options are.
Yeah.
I just, on the unallocated expenses, we just look at this thing and they're talking millions of dollars in line items here versus stuff. A lot of the other stuff we're looking at tonight is $25,000-$50,000. It's peanuts. And we haven't been able to find something that is competitive. And it's been years.
Well, I think we get a pretty good deal with where we're at, which is why, we can always do an analysis and look at options, but the reason that doesn't happen because every year there's 1 or 2 towns that will do something like that and they share the results and it's all the same. What we're doing is working and it's going well. But really drives it home. Yeah, it's expensive stuff. The option is just not have it at all, but that's not really an option.
That's even
Right.
more expensive.
Right.
Healthcare is expensive
Good luck.
to us. All right.
Right.
Anything else, Rich?
No, but Mary, I need to leave shortly, so I'm gonna just dive right into the debt service budget real quick,
Yep. I was just gonna say that's the last.
which is really pretty straightforward, I think. I've listed all the debt. This is on page 164. It's almost all exempt debt. You see there's a couple, there's 4 new additions at the bottom. That's the new debt service for the bonds that had previously been authorized. The last 2 are estimates for things that are coming up, but at the moment won't be finalized until late spring. But I got to carry an amount for estimate what I think the debt service on these, but these are both water bonds will be.
Rich, when you've got the actual on here, did you forget the 0 at the end?
Well, the actual is what's budgeted.
No, I'm just saying you've got like the first one, 308 comma, then 2.5. I think you mean 250.
In the actual, yeah, looks like that last column
It
got,
just get cut
didn't
off.
get
over
Cut,
here.
it got
yeah.
cut off.
Pretty,
Do you see where I'm looking? It's the farthest,
way to the right, the last column.
it's the last column under actual.
I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, you're looking at the electronic version, Rich?
Yeah,
Yeah, see, it's a printout. I think it's just a printout.
It's a
problem.
printout.
It just
Oh, okay.
knocked off the last.
You just forgot the last digit.
okay.
The printer just didn't get the
Yeah.
last. digit.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's FY 21, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, I just, it's the actual, so
Yeah.
Um.
I
After
have
this,
another.
just point of
Go ahead.
question is, yeah, I think there's one more bond after these bonds, for the final water phases. And then, well, one more for the planned project. And then there will be a final bond that will incorporate any project wrap up and anything that we want to do as far as, finalizing the paving of roads and anything like that.
The information you have on here for Rock Harbor, does that include the grant monies that we've received?
Yeah, this is the amount of the bond that we actually have, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the debt service. You do have a couple non-exempt, that's on page 166, meaning that we don't raise tax revenues for these. Or extra tax revenues, I should say. That's the Town Center Plaza, which was finalized this past year, and the Beach Plum. But the
That's
beach,
Family
but I'm
support
listing
package.
Beach Plum for reference, but we are funding that from the family support package, for housing for debt
Yep.
service. It's a little bit more than we anticipated, but we have money to cover it. It drops down after this first year to just about $100,000 a year.
Does that go for the town center too, Rich, or is that just? beach
No,
club?
Town Center is paid for through short-term rental receipts. When we have a discussion about revenues, you'll see under short-term rental receipts, I budgeted 345 and back on 164, the 1 million, a portion of that 1,552,000 for wastewater bond. The intent is once we get Town Center Plaza off our plate, that we put all that short-term rental towards the wastewater debt service. And then finally, 167 shows costs of issuing bonds. It's last bond issue cost us over $100,000 in legal and financial advisory fees. Typically, what we've been doing is we've been asking them to issue them with what's called a bond premium, and those proceeds pay those issuance costs. One of the things I kind of want to look into, I think that costs us a little bit of money to do it that way. So I'd rather just fund our own issuance costs and then get just a flat interest cost on a bond and not have to issue it, to deal with premiums. But I'll find out about that. But anyway, I am upping our bond issuance costs. And this would be an area, if we can't afford to do this, because we have to make changes, this is an area we could cut back to historical amounts to cover any other shortfall or any other needs that crop up between now and the end of the process. And then finally, on 168 is our leases. We had 2 of our leases drop off in this upcoming year. And now we're just left with the ambulance lease payment and the Quint fire engine lease payment, both of which are funded by the ambulance fund.
Excuse me.
And that's it.
Rich, you don't have tea time property here.
Tea time. Of course, I just went back to the beginning of the document here.
Each time is,
Tea time is on page 164. It's maybe a third from the bottom. It's 01703 and 01704. For a total of about
15.
well,
18.
819,
So
119.
what page is that?
It's on page 164.
Yep.
Where the debt service budget
Oh,
is
yeah, got it.
listed.
See it. Mm-hmm, yeah. Listed twice there, yeah.
T-time purchase A and T-time purchase B.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just a general question, looking at years 26, 27, 28 going on like that. What's the budget's gonna be for the debt service at that point? Anything dropping off of major, or is it pretty gonna be consistent going through?
It's going to increase for a few more years before we start to have some drop off. I do have, in the capital budget book, there is a debt service projection.
Yeah, I remember seeing that a while back, yeah.
I thought it
Okay.
maxed at 26, Rich. No, it doesn't. It's
Yeah,
gotta
that-
go longer than that.
I
That's
think
that's
it's
the high.
changed.
It's gone out
It's
another
changed.
year.
It's shifted a year or two at this point because of the new debt coming on.
Oh, we pushed wastewater a year too, didn't we?
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not. I might have gotten it back on the rails.
Okay,
I'm living hopefully.
all right.
I think the first item that might come off would be and I'm guessing with the timing, the elementary school.
Yeah, that's the,
I think that might be the first one, and then maybe the second one would be my library.
I think your library has a ways to go though.
It's 20 years, and it was maybe 2014.
It's it's only halfway.
Yeah.
You like those two, the next ones that come off the list?
Well, I'm guessing that the next one is the elementary school. Rich would have to confirm or deny. And then I was thinking the next one after that would be the library, but that was a 20-year bond. And probably in 2011.
I can
2000
forward, I have a debt runout schedule I can forward to everybody. Lists each
I-
issue and when the debt services run through, so.
Yeah, I have a listing at home. I
A
don't
lot
have
of
it
our
here.
debt is
I'm sorry.
newer. That's the problem.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
A lot of our bigger debt is newer.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of small items on this list here right now.
Well, the library was 4.5 and I'm sure the elementary school was even, I don't know, I don't know how much the elementary school was.
Mary, I need to log off to join another meeting
yes,
in a
yes,
few
yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
But Jackie, if you could help wrap up, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Take
Thank
care of
you, Rich.
yourself. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm looking at let me put this right. Looking at the agenda. Under new business, I just want people to be aware that the residential tax exemption discussion is scheduled for next Monday, January 29th, 2024. For people that are interested in either attending the select board meeting or zooming in. And that's a discussion that occurs every year. So I don't think there's in case anybody has a question about it, that's just basic, not basic, but.
And I want to remind everyone that might be listening that the actual vote is in August,
Right,
not
right.
now.
But this needs to be decided, some things need to be decided or discussed soon, and if you're going to put something in place, you've got to make some changes. I mean,
We usually like to have but I'm just saying,
yeah, I realize it's a two-part
people get very confused. about it.
two-part system.
Mhm.
On to item number B under new business, Roy's wife Hilda did resign from the search committee at the end of this year. She was a finance committee appointee. So I'm going to have to work with the search committee to replace her. Her time was up 6/30/24. I'm sorry, 6/30/25. Yeah, let me see, her term was up on will be up this year, 6/30/24. So I have to work with the search committee to replace her. And I just want to add under new business that the town meeting has been determined to be held on May 6th. It's a Monday, but time and place still unclear. Is that correct, Jackie?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Town-
so
it's
May 6th.
May 6th is.
It's a Monday.
It's a Monday night.
First Monday in May.
So we're going back to the charter provisions, which is the first Monday in May, and it will be, it's gonna be at Nauset Middle School. I just can't tell you whether it's the gym or the auditorium. I believe we'll probably set up the gym.
That's what that's what our bylaws say. It's a Monday night.
Charter, yeah.
Or
First
charter,
Monday
that's what it should-
First Monday in May.
Wow.
Like Wellfleet is the last Monday in April.
Does anybody have any other new business that they'd like to bring up at the moment? Oh, you know what I forgot? I forgot old business. Sorry, folks. Capital Project Committee. I know Steve and Peter are on it. And I understand Fred Guidi is now the fifth, is it the fifth? The fifth member? 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth, fifth, well, there's five,
First one,
two,
yeah.
two and you, yeah. Is there anything? Have you met?
We met since our last finance
Twice,
committee
yeah.
meeting and talked about the various projects. And also our one of the assistants got us the detail on the town hall project.
Mm.
And got us set up so that we can access all that stuff, remotely on our computers, so. But no big news from that committee.
No, I mean, I
Talked
think,
a little bit about Rock Harbor.
yeah, wastewater is a big question and I've made some progress on that. So I need to go back to the committee and talk to them a little bit about that. Actually had it on my agenda to what's with Steve. But everything's going along pretty smoothly. I am anticipating on the town hall project. They are finding what they call existing conditions.
Which is,
So we hate that.
Change
Well,
orders.
right. Is
Well,
it-
they found all these
Like-
wires, like electrical conduits and wires that aren't attached, that were sort of left like
In place, they
abandoned.
weren't removed.
Right, so, and they haven't even started ripping down the trim, the fascia boards, that they just started that, and that's, I think, gonna be our weak spot too, so. I am concerned about the unknowns
Hmm.
of this project. I kind of wanted them to just put the boards back.
Where are they finding the electrical? Outside, on
No,
the
because they're
buried?
excavating, so it's right around the base of the building. We're
Mhm.
finding all kinds of, yeah.
Stuff,
I mean,
that-
it is an old building, but,
so the wires aren't being used for anything, they're just sitting there?
right.
They probably they probably
Need
just
to
cut
be
them there
moved. Yeah.
and they cut them at the pole or
Need to be
something, ran new
removed,
one.
and then
And they
we
didn't
need to
remove them?
move some of the utilities so that they're in better places. So while, while we're excavating, they want to do some of these things, which makes a lot of sense, but it's not in the original scope, so,
Is that state law? They probably have to, by code, they probably gotta get rid of it now.
yeah. I
Yeah.
can talk to the inspector tomorrow. I just got the note today,
Mm.
so.
I thought you were just putting in a patio
Be a big
outside your
dollar
office.
item.
No, it shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be too bad.
I can, every time they start digging, I go,
Shouldn't
do
be
we
bad
need
if
to be
it's
this
good
deep?
stuff.
Just-
My son is.
They don't find any Indian
renovating-
remains.
Yep.
Um,
Don't even
I'm thinking I
see.
go down the building.
Mm.
My son has been renovating an old house all this year. And every time you dig down.
Yeah, it's bad.
or There, I mean, the stuff under, I mean, if you want to buy an old house, bring a checkbook.
The money pit. There was a movie about that.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great.
As far as the rotten trim though, we should, I mean, that, a lot of that should be covered in the specs. Because that's the job, is to replace the rotten trim, so,
Yeah, but it's what's
Um,
under the trim. That's the-
yeah, but.
Oh, I
see.
see. You got rot
Well,
under the
I-
fascia board that
Yeah.
you've got to replace. No sense in
Because
putting up
we
new
had-
fascia
That's,
board.
that's not unexpected either.
Neglected the roof. We, so we haven't
Yep.
had good gutters, so, all that.
Roof's done though, right?
Roof's done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, the roof was done a while ago.
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was big. I mean, originally we, the CPA folks were gonna get involved with that, and then they had a storm and they had a leak and the insurance paid for it.
Did they have to replace a lot of the roof, actual roof itself?
No,
Oh, just
actually,
shingles, yeah.
surprisingly not. The roof was underneath the shingling. It was in okay. We didn't have to replace plywood and stuff. We did on the police station roof.
Yeah.
But not on town hall.
That's interesting. You didn't have to replace the roof on the building, yet you got rot underneath the fascia board.
Yeah,
Maybe.
so
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, I'm hopeful.
Well, I wonder if we budgeted anything for change orders, the 6% that's sort of industry standard.
We did not budget anything for change orders because we had to come up with extra money just to cover the contract.
When you originally came in, that 680, that was 60,000, I added 60,000 to
20%,
the
right.
620
We did.
because of a contingency at that point.
The
but
contract was
1,066,000, so there essentially no contingency,
No, we had to find almost $100,000.
just to add up to the
Yeah.
1,066,000.
But I certainly didn't want to do this a third time, so. That contract, that low bidder was $450,000 less than the closest
Next,
second.
Next one.
So. That's a good, very, very good contractor. He's very meticulous, which is good, but he's digging up all kinds of.
Now you gotta do it right. You just
Yeah.
end up be back here in
That's
another
your
10
one
years.
shot, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is, we're definitely not.
And it's not going to be any cheaper.
Right.
And I'm not sure they
But more
repointed or
damage.
did anything in 1995 when they did the interior renovation.
Mm.
Did they? I don't think so.
I think
So
not.
it's been a while since the
Yeah.
exterior's been left,
95, that's almost 30 years ago.
right?
I don't think they touched
And
the outside of
the
that building.
interior renovation, I mean, look at this building. It went extremely well because we really haven't had to do much. It's aging very well.
This part was new, right? No?
One
Some of
part
it was new,
was,
yeah.
I think the upstairs was, we made the auditorium into offices.
No, I remember the old auditorium.
Hmm.
But yeah, the bricks, I don't think they were touched.
No, I don't think so.
The only thing they've done to the outside of the old building anyway, in the last 50 years was replace the windows.
Yeah.
One of the first CPA projects, actually.
And that was great. Thank God we did that.
This guy's also doing the pointing on the bricks.
Yeah, he's subcontracting with a mason to do the repointing. And we got a historic mason, a mason who understands it, so we're very happy with that.
And that should be that cost should be pretty predictable, because
Yeah.
they can see it,
Right.
you know, they bid on, yeah.
Okay, so unless anybody has any other questions on that
We don't-
new business, and back to the old business, the other item under old business is the Nauset Regional School Committee budget finance regional agreement, and I just want to say that a number of us have been attending all sorts of financial meetings associated with the Nauset Regional School System. The budget meetings, the subcommittee meetings, the policy agreements. And last week, Steve and I were here and Peter and Tom zoomed in for the fiscal year 25 Eastham Elementary School meeting.
Yeah.
And
Very bad.
yes, very, very bad news. So the issue there seems to be, the majority of the issue, I should say, seems to be not only for this year, special ed costs, but next year, special ed costs too. And obviously, they're more than next year, more than 3%. And this, so Steve and I spent some time talking with Bill Crosby, who's the principal at the elementary school. Because obviously, when you're doing a budget today, let's say, You don't know that next September, October, November, you might end up with a special ed child.
Right.
And that the cost is huge. And so we were in talking with, Bill about it. There are some special ed students here in Eastham. There's some in Brewster. We are actually getting a special ed student from Wellfleet in Eastham here. Regional, something doing from a regional perspective, but we're wondering whether that would be something that should be looked into, number one.
Well, it is right
And-
now, right? We're applying for the grant.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. In case people don't know, that the 4 towns are applying for a grant to study feasibility, I guess, I don't know what you're calling it, a feasibility study. To look at all of the information, all the data associated with all 4 elementary schools, and I don't know whether you're including the middle school.
They're including the infrastructure of the middle school.
Infrastructure of the middle school. And so I'm just wondering whether, in talking with Steve and I and talking with Bill, whether it would make sense to put something in place, sort of like what we have for the IOD, the injured on duty, putting some sort of funding in place that we would fund so that we would have the money to pay for the next year if we end up having huge amounts due to the special ed student or students. Because the state doesn't pay for all of the costs associated, and they are, as I said, they are huge.
So you want to set up like a contingency fund?
What
Yeah.
money would we set aside for that, though?
Well,
That's the issue.
That's,
So Brewster did that last year, and Rich and I talked about it last year, and we've talked about it this year. But say we moved $100,000 from free cash into that account, that might help us a little bit next year, but it would take us a while to build up enough money to make that. I don't know. There's pros and cons.
Isn't that what I heard about it from Brewster? They tried that.
Yeah, and
and
they're bankrupt
zeroed
already,
out the
yeah.
First year. They
they've
went-
used it up.
Yes,
it went-
more than used it
more
up
than
the
used it.
first.
Well, yeah, we can say bankrupt.
What's the cost per student roughly?
For sped.
I don't know, but
What do you, well, when you said 100,000 wasn't enough, what do you need in
oh,
something like
like
that?
one outplacement could
Yeah.
be $160,000.
Okay, okay, that's what I didn't know. Okay,
So I think unless we put like $500,000
it's not worth it.
into it, it's,
Eastham Elementary.
A lot of it,
Next year.
a lot of it
Students do we have?
well, the problem is sometimes we have 0,
Yeah.
and then this year we have 2 new,
For special
I
ed.
think, outplacements. So it's not the ones that the kids that can stay in the classroom. We have teachers for that.
Yeah.
If they have to hire an aide, that's a minor cost, but if we have to outplace them, then that's a
Do we
major.
typically have one student a year
No,
on average? No, less than that.
I wanted to bring it up because it's
Yeah.
an issue. And I'm aware that that the 4 towns are looking into the grant.
yeah.
And I'm aware that we've got some financial issues associated with it. And I'm just not sure how.
And it's kind of just like the peaks and valleys. That's the challenge of all of our school budgeting right now is the peaks and valleys. Like right now, this year, our percentage, it looks like went from 18, a little under 18% to 20+%. So we have more kids and a higher percentage.
mhm.
Everybody else has gone down. So
In the regional?
in the
yes.
region.
And so that's how it's just really hard. We cannot predict it from year to year.
Well, will the
That's-
3-year average,
I think it'll help.
Help.
I
Yeah.
do.
That'll help.
And I think the other thing is like, we celebrate if our 5th grader special needs kid moves into the,
It's.
but we're still paying for that. It's
Yeah.
just in the larger pool, But this year, Eastham has 2 more, Brewster has 2 more, so
2 more.
sped
Bed. Okay,
placements.
gotcha.
A big part of the sped cost is the transportation.
that's a big part of it too. And
Unless
counseling.
residential.
So where do they go? Plymouth, further?
I don't know.
I'm just wondering if it gets to the point where maybe we should have a special ed program on the Cape for all the Cape towns.
Well, we
Save
do,
that
but
travel.
we do, but some of them require more than we have. We have the collaborative.
The bad news from Brewster is not reflected in this draft budget. I'm sorry, the bad news from Eastham Elementary School.
I
Oh,
haven't
no, none of it is.
It's just a 3%,
I think he hit 3.5, maybe.
3.5.
Yeah, it's 3 on this list, I think.
Okay, well, zero.
But, yeah, 3% for Eastham, and then the placeholder anyway is 11.5% for Nauset and 10% for Cape Tech. Those are pretty rough at this point, it
Mhm.
sounds like, right?
Yeah. Anyway, and we are also been, as I mentioned, involved with the agreement within the 4 towns that I guess was originally, the one that we're looking at was originally put together in 2002 and never reviewed until now. And so we have been meeting with some of the folks from the other finance committees from the other 3 towns. And I'll let Tom sort of bring everybody up to speed on some of the things that we've also compared what was put together by their attorney, the attorney for the 4 towns, Nancy Campany,
For the region, yep.
for the region. Thanks, Peter. And I was gonna say something.
Well, we've seen what the
Oh, Monomoy,
Current
I was gonna say Monomoy.
Monomoy agreement, and actually then someone also provided us with a copy of a second agreement. I forget what district it was from. But we put our comments together on the draft agreements, including what the attorney said. And based on what we shared with the select board here, really it came down to 2 things. So we're using a 3-year rolling average. Okay. Also, there's a big question of who approves the agreement. The original agreement was actually approved by the select boards in the town. And there's a lot of question right now. Okay, really who the school committee answers to? They look at it, it's their job to come up with a budget and take it to town meetings. And the select boards, I think, in some of the towns would like a little more participation in that process. So another thing we put into the draft agreement was a schedule relative to them submitting a draft or a proposed budget, whatever the right word is to use, but something that's mature enough to us in January so we can begin the review process. So
Yes.
then when they come back, okay, with the final budget, when it's in March, we're much more apt to be able to make sure that we're adjusting our financial planning to accommodate that rather than getting it dropped at the last minute. There is, Brewster is taking the lead and kind of consolidating all these agreements because they're going to their select board. They're also supposed to send that consolidated agreement to all the town administrators and town managers. Jack,
Just did.
you just got, so
I
you
just got it,
you
yeah.
just got it to share, not just yourself, but also select board. I'm
Yep.
assuming you're gonna get it to them as well.
Yep.
It'd be great if you could share that maybe with us too, Jackie. Because
Absolutely.
we haven't seen,
He sent it electronically, so I'll just send
that'd be
it.
great.
Send us an
Yeah, we
email.
didn't see that.
We haven't seen everything. We've only supplied ours and I don't know, Mary, whether you heard
I
anything
have
back from
not.
Peter. I haven't heard anything
haven't-
since we
I
sent it
haven't
to
seen it.
Peter Deal, who's the head down booster who's pulling it together. So, I think that they have done some good things down there. There was a lot of rile about negotiating a recent, what was the agreement with
Truro and Providence.
with Truro
It
and
was the
Provincetown,
Provincetown-Truro agreement.
I think we collectively, and Steve and Mary and Peter and myself and look at this, we think they did a pretty good job on that. We didn't really have any issues with that. I think they
So
they
too.
did a good job. And also I think you've got to think about how much we want to be in the knickers of the day-to-day operations. I'm going to be a little facetious, but do we want to approve every single purchase order that when they buy pens and pencils? I don't want to get into that kind of detail, and I kind of look at that as their responsibility. But the renewal of the agreement is kind of important too, you know what I mean? And relative to what the costs are and how we share and how they calculate that share. There's this whole statutory cost versus alternative method, which we won't go into now. But I think it's been a big learning process for the whole town, for the whole region. I'm sorry, the district, in understanding how the budget actually gets formulated and who can actually give it a thumbs up and thumbs down. So anyway, they're moving through this. I expect that this draft is going to go to these folks. I think Brewster would like to get it to their town meeting. It has to be approved by town meeting. So in order to get into the town meetings, people are on a fast track to try to get it done this year. There's a lot of family that says it might not make it this year for all of the towns, and it'll probably be one more year. Just because of the challenge in front of it. So a lot going on. We'll share it with you folks. And I still think, Jackie, one of the big questions is who's got the authority to approve that agreement and amendments to that agreement? And outside, because the original one was signed by select boards of all the towns. The one we reviewed, I think the last one was it an amendment or something was signed by the school committee.
School committee. yeah.
So where did that change kind of happen,
I think the first one was the towns agreeing, so maybe that's, I don't know.
It could
But
be.
I think it, no matter who writes it, it has to go to town meeting, so we could easily defeat it at town meeting if we don't like the contents.
Yeah.
So this is what I think Peter Lombardi's saying, this is a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Because if it needs to be passed at every town
But we
meeting,
need to
then
collaborate.
the school committee, the finance committees, the
get that.
select boards need to agree.
And it's very similar to the budget too. The budget itself needs to go to town meeting. And the question is, even though we can suggest changes, but we can't make them change it. But they don't want to take a budget to a town meeting that the finance committee and the select board vote, 0 to 9 on. You know what I mean? There's going to be a lot of questions. So it's like an associate contractor agreement. You've really got to come to some sort of collaboration here to make sure that as this budget is developed, everyone's got an opportunity to have some input and actually do the right planning in each of the towns to be able to pay for it.
And I have to say, Tom, a few years ago, we have been successful a couple of times, not at the general overall school budget, but in saying things that we think are totally out of whack. Like, for instance, the air conditioning in the middle school, or there were some items that were
Yeah,
very
yeah.
expensive that we basically just said, if you bring these to town meeting, we're going to subtract them out of the budget. And if all 4 towns do it,
Mhm.
we can do that. So it's a matter of getting the passion for all 4 towns on
Exactly
one
right.
piece of it,
Mhm.
Yeah.
know.
There's a lot of changes. One of the things I did share with Mary and Peter, though, I saw something in the Globe a couple of weeks ago. What
very
town was that?
interesting.
It's
Oh, yeah.
it's up on the North Shore. I want to say it was a regional school district.
Yeah.
Anyway, they hadn't looked at their agreement and something.
1997.
Oh, I think it was even, it was over 30 years. It might have been 40
Yeah.
years that they hadn't looked at it. And they're going.
Said Massachusetts state law, I think, requires that the school budget be included in our budget. But it would be nice if we could put the school budget in a separate article.
We've
It
talked about
really
that in the
would
past.
help, I think, us a lot in terms of trying to recognize the control of costs.
That's state law?
Yeah, see, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, they all separate out there.
I think Rich is in favor of that too. and I
Yeah,
thought-
Yeah,
thought
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
he
And we
thought there
discussed
was
it
a
as a
way
finance
to get
committee
it,
too.
to get it as a separate article.
Yeah.
And then if there's if there's an override required, they know what it's for the
Right,
school
right.
budget and. it
Well,
gets
he would
voted.
know more than I do, but
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's a state law that prevents us from separating it out right now. Cause we looked at it 2 or 3 years ago.
Even from a regional standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Well, we're all learning. Anyway, more to come on that and
Yeah,
make sure you
yeah.
guys get a copy to take a look at.
Yeah, so I'll
We're
send that
talking-
out. I'll send it out tomorrow because
Oh,
it's on
good.
my email.
Because we were I think there was also something in there about changing or changing the chairmanship.
Rotating it.
Rotating
That was
it.
one of the
And
first
the other
ideas.
one is reviewing this agreement every 5 years.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
a- there's
actually, by
language-
state law, they're supposed
Language
to be
in there
reviewed
that has
every
to be
5
reviewed
years.
every 5 years.
Yeah.
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 Okay. On to, let's see, where are we? I didn't know whether you had anything else to add, Jackie, with the town manager's report.
I don't think so.
We talked about the town hall. And we talked about the state grant. Community fund, that's still,
It's moved. It's
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
Senate now.
no,
Oh.
Sarah Peak is not running.
No.
That was a blow. From my perspective, that's a blow.
It's a big loss.
Yes,
She's been in there a long
a
time.
lot, yes, a long
20
time,
years?
Oh, she's
20?
been
20.
a decent amount of time, but.
a long time, but she's very good.
But I do remember, I have to be honest with you, I remember 18 years ago when she ran thinking, didn't know Sarah at that
Mm.
point, but thinking nobody can replace Shirley Gomes. Shirley Gomes
yeah,
has
she
done
was
such a
very
great
good too.
job.
Tiger, yeah.
Yeah, she was.
So, maybe someone will rise.
Someone.
But she is an amazing, she has been an amazing representative
supporter.
for us. Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't as big a fan of Shirley Gomes as you were, Jackie.
Really?
No,
Well, she was a Republican, but she was very, very good to human services, education, a lot of, she was a Massachusetts Republican. They're different than other Republicans.
And a hard work.
Yes,
Mhm.
incredible. Same way as Sarah, always available.
It's worth a lot.
It is.
Okay, just a brief discussion, I'm at number 8 now, we're getting there, folks. The upcoming schedule, our next meeting,
Time for breakfast.
on 1/31, which is next week, at the usual 4 o'clock. We've been in touch with Maura Noonan Carey, who is the chair of the, school committee, amongst the 4 towns here. And she has agreed to come and talk to us about the fiscal year 25 budget for the Nauset Regional Schools. And so she is going to be here at 4 o'clock next week, to talk to us about that.
this is the superintendent.
No, it's.
No, more,
Is she the vice chair?
Maura Noonan Carey,
I think she's the vice chair.
She's part
vice
of East Ham.
vice chair of the,
Seems like.
regional
Great.
school committee.
She's
And
East-
and she's an East Ham resident,
East Ham
obviously.
Representative on the school committee.
Yeah, right.
And they actually had, she's also a member of the regional budget and finance subcommittee.
Right, that we've been.
And they had a
attending.
meeting last night where they continued their review of the middle school and high school budgets and the central office budget. So she should have some good up-to-date information next
On
Wednesday.
Fiscal year
Yeah.
25.
Yeah, FY 25.
And she'll bring us a draft budget.
That
A
she
draft,
won't.
a draft proposed budget.
Yeah.
I bet she won't. We can ask for it.
Too bad, timing wouldn't be that far off.
It'd be great. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to go to that one last night, but I had another meeting. and,
I had another meeting too.
I wonder if they actually handed out the draft. The one before that, they considered it, but you couldn't get a copy of it. I think I told you.
So I just want, does everybody have a copy of the schedule?
It's actually in the budget book.
Yeah, it's in the budget book. So I just want everybody to know, I won't go through. We essentially have a meeting with a department or more. 1/31, February 7th, February 14th, February 21st, and February 28th. Every week
Everyone's.
from today until February 28th.
Don't we go into March though, as well? Then
Well,
we gotta
well, we
review the
go into
warrant
March.
and vote.
Then we out the warrant.
Yeah.
Yeah, the warrant is scheduled,
And then the
Yeah.
schools.
and then we have the
Yeah.
school.
Mary?
Oh,
I
yes.
suggested, please, these meetings are supposed to go 2 hours based on